Good evening, Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Welcome to another episode of True Story Live. Tonight's episode is titled, Where Do We Go From Here? Radical Acceptance. You don't want to miss this one. That's going to be very good. Well, they're all very good, but this one, Jen gets to read the write-up, and she also wrote the write-up with no help from yours truly.
Just a little.
Well, but we'll get into that in just a second. So, if you've never heard of radical acceptance, you're going to know what that is before the broadcast is over. And this is going to be a really good one. So, sit tight. And as always, we'll say hello to the rest of the panel. I'm Cripps, and I'm the host of this broadcast, but I'm also sharing the mic and the time with three wonderful people. And this time, I think, introduce the ladies first, but I'm going to do it backwards. I'm going to introduce our friend from Australia, Glenn. Glenn, if you would say hello to the peoples for me, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. That's it.
Short and sweet, as always.
Nothing to add, really. So, hello.
Right. No, yeah, it's just saying hello. You don't have to add anything.
Sunday.
I did it wrong. Did you hear that?
What?
I said, I for years I've just said Sunday, and tonight I said good evening, Sunday.
Yeah, I did pick it. So
maybe I should do that. Maybe I should do that from now on.
Yeah, keep everyone on their toes.
Right.
Well done.
I love it.
Thanks.
We're glad that you're here, Glenn. Thank you. We'll introduce Marisa from our friend from Ohio. Marisa, say hello to the peoples, if you would, please, ma'am.
Hello to the peoples. Good evening. Sunday. Yeah, I caught that right away. That was great. Mix it up a little bit. What a great day. I hope you guys had a great day. And Jen did a wonderful write-up, and I cannot wait to get into this conversation. Please share it out on your social media if you're so inclined. And I can't wait to get started. Glad to be here with you guys.
Thank you, Marisa. And I always like to talk about your channel, especially while my wonderful, creative, talented wife is joining your talented and creative self. And this week it was on Friday. Was it Friday? I think it was it Friday this week, Jen?
That what happened?
That you joined Marisa?
Yeah, Friday night.
Okay, so Friday night. Now, Marisa does other shows that don't involve Jen. I want you to watch all of those as well. But if you want to see Marisa and Jen and also a special guest that was also drawing on Friday or creating, then please
Floyd Bingo.
Floyd Bingo. Please go to Nez Lover's channel if you haven't seen that already, and check it out. You will not be disappointed. So do that. Okay. Last but certainly not least, my wonderful, I've already said creative, I'll add imaginative, loving, and kind wife, Jennifer from South Carolina.
Hello, peoples.
Hello.
Great to be here as always. I really look forward to our stuff on Sunday nights and just chatting with the chat and talking deep stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's my favorite.
Yeah. So are you looking forward to this particular write-up? I would guess that you are.
Well, I am, but I'm hoping I don't yawn through it. No,
Yeah, me too.
I guess I'm tired. Good grief.
Yeah.
Wake up.
Yeah. Okay, so Jen and I just started a new channel. I know we're just pumping out the channels left and right. I would like her to eventually do something with her channel that she's already created, the Starling Swallow, and do some of her art on that. But you have to crawl before you walk, and walk before you run, so to speak. So, but we're pumping out channels here. So we had talked about this before. And the idea came about because of the topics that we talk about on TSL, and then every once in a while the word narcissism gets thrown around, and some people in the chat have asked us to do certain topics and stuff, and it's not inappropriate to do that here on TSL, but we're kind of in a groove on the kind of things we talk about, and we do touch on narcissism as I said, from time to time. But we had just heard it so often, and we know it's a big thing in society right now. So we started a channel called Out of the Dark, and we just did our introductory our promo for the channel today. It's the only content that's on there right now, but we will be adding some content soon. But for everyone in here, and I'll talk about this again at the end of the broadcast, but I've posted our channel link. If you would just, when you get time, please just, if you have any interest in that sort of thing, just go over there and subscribe for us, and then you'll be notified when we get some more content on there. So thank you for that. Didn't want to
And
take
if anybody has stories to share regarding their own experiences with narcissism, feel free to write in.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so I won't take any more time up with that. Like I said, I will talk about it again at the end of the show. But Jen, if you could, we've got a few in the chat that deserve being said a hearty hello to. If you would do that, please, and then we'll get started.
Sure. So we have Mike Smith just popped in. Hey, Mike. BB Truth. Hello, BB. Annette Sandrock. Hi, Annette. We've got Jamie Grace, Bobby Meyer. Hey, Bobby. Our lovely Nez, me, Celine. Yeah. And I think Nathan Gruber popped in earlier. Maybe he's still hanging out here. And we've got Glenn as well. He's not in the chat yet, but he's here with us.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, so you guys get a special treat tonight. As I said, some of you popped in after the fact. So Jen wrote the write-up for tonight. She'll also be reading the initial write-up. And the topic is, where do we go from here? Radical acceptance. So Jen, whenever you're ready, take it away.
All right. And it's a really, really good song. So if you guys haven't gotten a chance already to click on the link in the description and check it out. It's a very beautiful song. Okay, where do we go from here? Radical acceptance. Tonight's write-up is inspired by the song, excuse me, by Fink. Yesterday was hard on all of us. Link is in the description. And starting with some quotes. Radical acceptance rests on letting go of the illusion of control and a willingness to notice and accept things as they are right now without judging. And that is by Marsha M. Linehan, I think. Yeah. Next quote, accept, then act. Whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. Always work with it. This will miraculously transform your whole life. And that is by Eckhart. Is it Tolle?
Tolle, yes, that's correct.
Tolle, okay. I always want to say Tolle. That's not correct. If I say it wrong, guys, please on air, you can correct me. Or in the chat. Next quote, radical acceptance means that you have stopped fighting with reality and throwing fits about what happened. You have decided to acknowledge and accept it instead. Once you do this, you may feel intense sadness because you have now given up on all hope of a better past or a better outcome currently. At the same time, you may also feel great relief because now you can finally let go of the fight over what should have been and deal more effectively with what's in front of you as it is. And that quote is by Cindy Finch, and that one's my favorite out of the three.
Yeah.
All right. Do we get put into roles within our families? I believe we do, and that sometimes it's put on us by our parents and or siblings, and sometimes it's a role we slide into based on our family dynamics. It can be very confusing for some of us to transition from childhood to adulthood. We are given a pattern or to live by, and it's based on familial relationships, how we are treated, what we discern that is expected of us, how our families respond to us within the of our growth or lack thereof. These dynamics can be hard to break out of, especially if we believe or assume another person or persons can see us more clearly than we see ourselves. For me, I had never felt secure. I felt everyone could see everything more clearly than I could, especially when it came to myself. I am no longer in that place, and the freedom I feel is exhilarating. Why do we choose to let others hold so much power over us? Why do we let others define us when we know ourselves better? Maybe we don't, yet. Why do we chase people who have consistently not given us the things we need from the relationship with them? Is it hope? Hope that it will change? that they will change? Is our picture of them a distortion of reality? Are we ready to see the truth, the reality of who they are and where they are at? Is a relationship where you have to set up boundaries a relationship that is healthy, one you should stay in or continue to pursue? Is a relationship where you feel you have to continue to fight for the real you to be seen, heard, respected, and loved, one you should remain in? Why or why not? In a relationship where people refuse to let you be you, allow you to be separate from them, why do you think people do this? And what does it do to a person when they are continually questioned or judged by those they love? Undermining is the word that comes to my mind. Someone could be doing this to you consciously or unconsciously. Either way, it is destructive. Being judged, criticized, even lovingly questioned, it undermines one's own choice, beliefs, goals, and sometimes their moods. Now, we shouldn't let anyone have power over all the things I listed above, but when it comes from people you love and trust, it's a bit harder for it not to affect you. Now we come to the answer. Radical acceptance. What is radical acceptance? It's when you stop fighting reality, stop responding with impulsive or destructive behaviors when things aren't going the way you want them to, and let go of bitterness that may be keeping you trapped in a cycle of suffering. Has my lack of radical acceptance of my own family kept me in a cycle of suffering? The answer is a resounding yes. The hope of what I wanted to be there was so strong that I couldn't face reality. It was too painful. And in order to feel more included or loved, I have perpetually remained in a role within my family in order to, in a twisted way, be of some use to them and for them to be of use to me. Crazy, right? But this has kept me stuck. I am now breaking out of the role I accepted for myself. In my fear of not wanting to be alienated from my family, I have come to realize I am and have been. I now understand that if being myself, trusting myself, and living my life the way I see is best for me alienates me from anyone, that isn't by my choosing. What does radical acceptance give us? I believe it gives us freedom. Freedom to not be so focused on what other people are or aren't doing. Freedom to be ourselves. Freedom to live our own lives and discover what that even looks like for ourselves. Do you have an area in your life where you need to apply radical acceptance? Is there anything you are afraid to really look closely at? And why is that, if so? Thanks for hanging out with us tonight, friends. Hope you enjoyed the topic. I'm not going to say the rest. We'll say that at the end. Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
Okay. Thank you, Jen. What a great write-up. I just love that one. There's a lot of good questions to ask, and we'll get into that in just a second. So while Jen was talking, or right before she talked, and I don't remember if we said hello to Annette. I think she popped on the tail end. Maybe you did, Jen, but I'm saying hello to Annette again anyway. So if you did, then it's twice. Paul Johnstone popped in as well, and preliminal. I think if you say it fast, it sounds like you're saying it correctly, right?
I'm waiting for Nez to pop in. Thank you, preliminal.
They're wrong for 3 years.
Okay, we don't feel so bad.
Oh, great stuff. Thank you guys for being here tonight. We appreciate you so much. Thank you. All right, we're going to dive right into this. I think I've covered everybody, and anyone else that pops in, we will keep an eye on the chat. And as usual, you guys are free to answer any of the questions that we ask to each other. And if you put them in the chat, all of us, check periodically to make sure that there's to see if there's any answers in there that we can share with everyone. We'll put your answer on the screen, and we'll talk about it a little bit as well. We definitely want you to be part of the show as always. So thank you. All right. So I'm going to just read the last paragraph before the questions. Jen says, it can be very confusing for some of us to transition from childhood to adulthood, which is very true. We're given a pattern or script to live by, and it's based on familial relationships, how we are treated, what we discern that is expected of us, how our families respond to us within the midst of our growth or lack thereof. These dynamics can be hard to break out of, especially if we believe or assume another person or persons can see us more clearly than we see ourselves. How often is that true? For me, I had never felt secure. I felt everyone could see everything more clearly than I could, especially when it came to myself. I am no longer in that place, and the freedom I feel is exhilarating. So out of that, the first question is, why do we choose to let others hold so much power over us? I'll go first to start things going here, and then we'll switch around to everybody else. I really relate to this topic, and also, when you're married to someone who is working on themselves and their relationships with other people and their family, if you're paying attention, in my opinion, it can help you tremendously, because at least I look at myself as well, my own family, my own relationships. And this has been going on since Jen and I met, and also since Glenn and I started talking as well. He's a good sounding board, and he isn't afraid to present his opinions of things that he sees in the family or in the way that I was being treated, and bring those to my attention. And in that way, there's a lot of this, I don't know, for lack of a better word, cross-contamination when people are together and they're talking about these things. All that to say that I benefited greatly from Jen looking at this whole concept in her own family and in herself, and asking some really important questions. This whole concept of radical acceptance. I looked back on things that I've done and how I healed, and there was a sense of radical acceptance without calling it that. But this makes things more clear to me. When you're in a stuck place. My mom used to talk about this a lot. She would ask her clients, "Do you feel stuck?" And they would answer either yes or no. But how many of us ever feel like we're in a stuck place? I've talked to a lot of people that seem to be in this place. They're not moving forward. They're not moving back. They just seem to be, like it's walking in quicksand or wet cement, that's drying fast, and you can't seem to move forward. Or whatever you're dealing with in your life seems to be just holding you in place. You want to grow. You want to change. You want to get somewhere, achieve your dreams, goals. And it just seems like something's holding you back. And I have felt like that many times, and it's gotten a lot better. But I still think that occasionally, when someone else is looking at their own life, you notice some ways in which you're in that same place, and I'm doing that. So it'll come out in the answer to the question. So this first one: why do we choose to let others hold so much power over us? These are going to be really consistent, my answers, with the way I've talked a lot about on this broadcast, of that we're taught by our parents. We're told how the world works, how our family works. We're given the rules. Jen said in the write-up, it's a script. I've done a lot of acting, so I get the mental image of, coming out of my mom's womb and then being handed a little script. Of course, I couldn't read, but just bear with me on that. I'm handed a script. All the expectations of my parents, their unrequited dreams and visions of what their life would be, put onto me, their fears and apprehensions, and also some of their successes. All of that in a script to tell me what they expect of me and how I'm to act. Now, people may disagree with that, but that's how I see it. So I think they hold so much power over you because they're the director, at least in the early stages of your life.
Great point.
They tell you where to stand. They tell you when to go to school, when to eat, when to brush your teeth, when to go to bed, what kind of friends you can have, who you can date, who you can't date. They monitor your grades in school and tell you, well, that's not good enough. You're going to have to try harder. What kind of jobs you get, what you do with your money, what kind of car you buy. I mean, it just goes on and on. So when you're growing up in that, I think it can be very difficult to break that power. And it is a power. at least in my opinion, because when you become adult and move away from home, everything that you learned in the family system, you still have those beliefs. It's not like when you leave the house for the first time and you go get your own apartment that all that stuff gets left behind. So the way you look at the world is very much formed by your parents' view of the world, at least at first. And then after time goes by, hopefully you grow into your own opinions and your own views of things, and you can slowly break away from that power that they hold over us. Or you can break away in many areas, but they still have this one area of power over you in their opinion of you, what they say about you. And that's kind of what we've been talking about over the past few weeks. It all comes down to, what do we need, as Glenn brought up? I'm paraphrasing what he said, but when we're in these places of dysfunction, what do we need out of the relationship? What is it we're not getting? And I think that's a great question. So my answer to why do we choose to let others hold so much power over us is because I believe it's our programming. It's the way we're programmed. It's the way we've been raised. And I find it difficult to fully break out of that. That's my opinion. And we'll, in keeping with the men on the panel, we'll ask Glenn what he thinks on this one. Why do we choose to let others hold so much power over us? Glenn?
I think because we're looking for acceptance. I think the two, power and acceptance, go together.
Sure.
So if you're looking for something, there's that horrible word again, which starts with V, who shall not be obeyed.
Not even going to say it, are you?
You can say it. But I think that's the key. I think we give the power. We're not really letting others hold it. We're giving them the power by our inherent desire for acceptance. That's how I see it.
I like it. So do you agree, though, that when a person is a child or an infant growing up, that they don't have much of a choice to accept that? Or do you see that differently?
Well, I think it depends on each family. Some rule with a rod of iron. Some tend to gradually, growing up, some parents tend to sort of, what's the word? Be flexible as you're growing up.
Yeah.
My parents were more flexible. They didn't sort of start off at 5 years of age, and by the time I was 10, they were the same parent. No, they were. It's pretty obvious that kids grow up.
Yeah.
So being adaptable as a parent, I think, is a key to this one.
Yeah. Thank you, Glenn.
Acknowledging that they actually have a brain and are starting to think for themselves.
Well, I agree completely. And if it were a healthy family, it seems like they would know intuitively that that's what needs to happen. Of course, an infant doesn't know how to feed itself or change its diaper. There has to be some direction. And, when the child is starting to walk, they have to be taught how to walk. They have to go to school. They have to learn things. Yes, of course, there needs to be some direction, especially at early ages. But in my mind, a healthy set of parents will know that, hey, we need to prepare this child for the real world. We need to start out by helping them grow. And then at some point, we're going to need to teach them how to be autonomous, how to be independent. We don't want them living in our basement for the rest of their life. So in that, there comes helping the child find their own way. But it seems so often to me that doesn't happen. There's a disconnect somewhere, whether it's societal or psychological or what. What's the difference between someone that leaves home right away and becomes immediately successful in their life and they're able to do that, and someone that has the same IQ, the same creativity, the same imagination as the one that's successful, and they're a complete and utter failure? What's the difference there? I mean, we could do a whole show about that. I mean, is it just the opportunities? Is it socioeconomical? That one person just has more things available to them, more opportunities available, or is it
more
something?
drive?
Right. Is it some, well, I think it can be social economic, but we know there are stories of people that grew up in a poor family and they still became successful. So what was the difference between that person and someone that grew up in the same neighborhood and their life is just a mess? I think it is drive, and I think it is affected at least by the family of origin, the family that you grew up in, what the rules are, what the morals and values are, and what the script is for each individual person. I mean, in the same way, even in the same family, you have two people brought up by the same parents with very different outcomes in the way they live their life. I mean, that's certainly true in our family. My sister is very much an A-type personality, and I've talked to her about this. And I was a strong-willed child, and she was very compliant. And she learned by watching me. I would fight them, fight their tyrannical rules and all of that. And she would see me get into trouble. So she'd say, well, I'm not going to do that. And she said that to me. She said, I learned by watching you, and I didn't want them to treat me the way they were treating you. So I went by the rules, whether I liked them or not. Now, she moved away from that a little bit when she went to college, but it didn't last very long. So my point is, she's an A-type personality, and she's been very successful in life. It hasn't been without some help from parents and other family members and stuff like that. But she's Jen said drive. She has a different drive than I do. Up until recently, I would have thought, if you asked me the question, where does drive come from? I would have thought, well, it's external. Something happens and it gives you drive. Because looking at my own life, I can see times in my life when I did have a drive, and usually it was because I'd done something to mess it up and I wanted to fix it. I was too uncomfortable, so I would do whatever I needed to do to right the ship, so to speak. And that's the way I am. People are, I'm sure, different, but now I think that we can create our own drive. It's a different topic, I suppose, but it's related to this in that, how, in trying to figure out why do we choose to let others hold so much power over us. Okay, so I've gone on enough. Marisa, you're up next on this one, since Jen did the write-up. Why do we choose to let others hold so much power over us, or do you think we do?
I think when we're young, like you were saying, that we're programmed and brought up a certain way. Mm-hmm. I think Glenn is correct when he says that we're looking for acceptance. I don't know of any human being, at least when they start out, that's not looking for love and acceptance. Mm-hmm. And the general rule of thumb is, if you please your family or whoever's caring for you, mother, father, grandparents, whatever the dynamic, you please caregiver who is in charge, then your life is good. Mm-hmm. But that may work well enough in a healthy family dynamic. But sadly, I think the healthy family dynamics are in the minority. And I think a lot of families had toxic components, specifically narcissists and enablers, which get you stuck with trauma bonding, which gets you stuck into relationships where you feel like you owe that person something, and you have to work and earn your love.
Yes.
And your care. Things that should be free and given freely and lovingly.
Wow.
Wow. I think a lot of us think we have better do A if we want to get B, come hell or high water, whatever that is.
That's it.
And I think a lot of us have had to do things that are not healthy, at the very least, to get what we thought we wanted from those people.
Wow. Great. Marisa, loved your answer. Thank you. Jen, you're last on this one. Why do we choose to let others hold so much power over us? What do you think?
I love what you said about when we're younger, the parents are the director.
Yeah.
So I was, like many of us, looking to my parents for direction, and almost kind of like waiting for it.
Yeah.
And then in some areas it didn't come and I was kind of confused.
Sure.
And I think I kind of slid into adulthood and I was still looking to my parents like, hey, where's my direction? I
Yeah.
was still looking to them. And that's
Right.
probably why I've spent the majority of my life feeling like a child. I don't think I was taught, how to do certain adult things or was prepared efficiently.
Right.
And so there was still a lot I didn't know. And so I was in young adulthood and still looking to my parents and sort of something in me waiting for them to sit me down and have like some kind of a talk to explain things to me.
Right.
And I think there are a lot of kids, when they go into adulthood, if they don't, there's some people that don't get that direction and then they seek it out themselves. And there's sometimes I've wondered, well, why didn't I do that?
Yeah.
I think my self-esteem was so low. I didn't think I was capable. I don't
Yeah.
think I thought I was capable. So I was continually waiting. So when you doubt yourself, even in young adulthood on up, I think you give your power away because, at least for me, it's like I looked at everybody else and just was always putting myself at the bottom of the totem pole. Like everybody else around me knows better than I do. So, will somebody talk to me about what the crap I'm supposed to do?
Yeah.
So in that position, yeah, I do think I gave my power away because I was waiting for someone to come along. Even in my first marriage, my ex seemed very well-to-do and financially stable, and he had his own business, and he drive. And I thought, okay, well, maybe. And we've talked about this before. I kind of hitched my wagon to his star, falling star, not a shooting one. Like,
Right.
oh no. But still, that didn't give me what I was looking for. And I didn't even see that that's what I was looking for. Like the conversation we're having tonight, gosh, I wish I could have had this conversation with someone way back then.
Yeah.
To just know the dynamics of what healthy looks like with this particular topic, growing up and becoming an adult and moving from being a child and moving into the adult world.
Yeah.
I just was woefully, I just didn't have that knowledge
Yeah.
on a very foundational level. So
Yeah.
that was why I gave my power away. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, sure it did. Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you, Jen. Appreciate that. All right, a couple comments from the chat. Preliminal says, caught in a loop of the same ideas, yet trying to make an idealistic concept work. Stuck in the introduction to your life, never reaching chapter 1.
Oh, dang.
Fantastic. Caught in a loop
Wow.
of the same ideas, yet trying to make an idealistic concept work. Stuck in the introduction to your life, never reaching chapter 1. That is very apt.
Can someone screenshot that? That's profound.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And Jamie Grace, our friend, says, when you grow up in a narc cult family, you're groomed from birth to play your part in the family. Very true, Jamie. Thank you for that comment. And Bobby Meyer says, sometimes it's a habit to be a certain way around certain people, and habits can be hard to break. Absolutely. We also want to say hello to Saida.
Saida, I think.
I hope I'm saying that properly. Welcome to the channel. We appreciate you. Looks like a couple of people said hello to you, which we appreciate. Everyone in the chat. I know a few of you did, but when we see people we don't know in the chat, if you would just make them feel welcome, we'd really appreciate that. We will get to everybody as soon as we get a chance, but I just want them to feel welcome. So thank you. Okay, that was all the comments to that one. Moving on. The next question is, why do we let others define us when we know ourselves better? Why do we let others define us when we know ourselves better? I'm not going to go first this time. We'll start with Marisa first. Marisa, why do we let others define us when we know ourselves better?
Because we want acceptance and love, and we want all those good things. And we think if we uh, let people, word from last week, manipulate us and control us in that way, if
Yeah.
we play ball and play nice and give those controlling people, like Dr. Les Carter says, what they want, then
Yeah.
I think often we fall into believing that if we give those people what they want, no matter how outrageous or unhealthy, then we'll get what we desire. And that's
Yeah.
love and respect and care.
And
Certainly.
acceptance. Yeah.
Sure.
That's why we do it. I don't think most people uh, are submitting to these controlling people because they are wanting the abuse. Yeah, there's people like that who like to be treated. There's all kinds of people out there. But I
Yeah.
think most of us are on a path of wanting love and acceptance. And it's just
Yeah.
we meet a lot of monsters on that path that don't
You know
want
what?
to be good
Oh,
to us.
God, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just a follow-up question. If any of us that have been through things like this, if we were told or if we somehow knew that we weren't going to get love and acceptance, would we have still to try to give these people all these
That's
things?
interesting.
Pick me.
And to come from a Christian point of view, God, people might say, well, why would God let these people into your lives in the first place? And I'll tell you why. They are a challenge. They are an obstacle. And from a Christian perspective, we are supposed to call on God to help us get
Right.
through, overcome these things. And the troubles and struggles are here for our benefit, ultimately, to
Yeah.
grow mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Yeah.
This isn't supposed to be heaven on earth where everything's easy and nothing bad happens. This is earth where, if you are into scripture, you know that Satan has full dominion over this world.
Yeah.
God's ultimately in control, certainly, but this is the devil's world. And a lot of bad things are going to happen to you along the way. A lot of bad things are going to happen to good people.
Sure.
It happens.
Yeah.
But God's grace is sufficient to get you through whatever.
Yeah.
Yep. Agreed.
And I think maybe Glenn would say, since he's not a believer, just you can get through what comes if you keep your cool, if you are honest with yourself and other people, and you deal with the situation as is. I think. Well, I think I've rattled on long enough. But you
Oh,
get
you're
what I'm
fine. You're fine.
saying.
Thank you. So the follow-up question that Jen asked, if I knew, and I'm paraphrasing what she said, but if I knew that all this work that I was doing to try to get the love and acceptance from my parents, if I knew that I would never get it, would I have done the same things? My answer to that is a resounding no. I would not.
Same.
I would not have. I did it for years, and I've talked about this before, but when Jen and I met, Glenn and Jen both pointed out to me, in a situation that was going on at the time in my family, that I was still trying to prove to them that I'm not who I thought they think I am or thought I was. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I saw it, and then once I saw it, I began the work to change that. Because then the Academy Award that I would have won for all the hard work that I had done in my family, playing the role I was assigned to, ended up getting Rotten Tomatoes. So I'd done all this work, put all this time and effort into thinking that I was being the person they wanted me to be, or at least what I perceived as who they wanted me to be, and nothing came of it. I mean, things came of it, as Marisa was pointing out, because God gave things to me, but they didn't give me what I needed or what I felt like I needed, which was their love and acceptance. Ultimately, that was what I wanted. I wanted to be loved for who I was, and I wanted to be accepted. I wanted them to be proud of me. Jen and I had a really great conversation last night. The conclusion of which was that we feel like there are some parents that do not want us to be happy. They don't want us to be successful. And the proof of that is when you do something that you really want to do and they fight it. They fight it constantly. Or you reach some success that you think that is important to them, like getting a great job with benefits. And then you get it and they go, oh yeah. Well, good job. And it's not what you think it is. They might verbally say something nice to you about it, but you think it's going to change the world, because you've finally done this thing that they've been on you to do all this time. Just real quick, one example I have of that is my mom in particular wanted me to go to school, and she was happy that I did go to school. But there are other people that tried to keep me away from that. My dad was one of those people. He said, you want a degree, you can have mine. So this fits into this idea of, it seems like people don't want you to be, some people don't want you to be successful. They don't want you to achieve. They don't want you to have good things. Now, each person has to ask themselves their own question in their own family, whether that's true or not. But to me, it's true. And I think Jen thought it was true. But in answering Jen's follow-up question, absolutely, I would not go to all the trouble that I went to and waste all the time that I did proving anything to them or trying to fit the mold that they created for me. Because the whole thing was a lie. They created a role for me. And then as I got older, they still wanted me to stay in the same role. I looked at the script pages and I'm like, this is a bunch of bull crap. I'm not this person. This isn't who I am. It's not who I'm going to be. So I started making changes, and they fought tooth and nail a lot of the changes that I started to make. And one of the changes, I've never been compliant. I was always asking questions. My mom would say, I would even defy reality sometimes with my aunt. I would want to go outside and play, and she would say, well, it's raining outside. And I'd go to the window and look outside, clearly see that it is raining. And I would say, no, it's not. Because I want to go outside. I didn't care if it was raining. And if I had the understanding of how to say that to my mother, say, I know it's raining. What I should have said was, I know it's raining. I don't care. That would have been the correct answer. But instead, I tried to change the reality of the situation. I did that quite often. But I felt like just one more thing. I felt like I needed to, because they were always trying to define my reality. So I thought, well, I'll try to define their reality or change the reality in which they see themselves in. What are you going to say, Jen?
I just was going to say the follow-up question. It pertains to my parents a little bit too, but I was thinking about with my ex, one of the main reasons I stayed as long as I did was hope. And I don't think hope is necessarily a bad thing, but I read a quote, and I wish I would have written it down. It was something about hope based on delusion isn't hope, it's something else.
Right.
But if I truly would have known the outcome, I wouldn't have stayed as long. The breadcrumbs, promises with words that had no action following them, was also what kept, it was the carrot on the stick thing. And it wasn't until that cycle had repeated itself multiple times to the point where I had to look at it, and I had some wonderful friends come into my life that helped me, move your head, stare at this, really look at it, I had to look at it logically and say, okay, this isn't going to change. Yes, he said this and he promised that and so on and so forth. No action followed it all the times that the promises were made. So I had to come to radical acceptance and if I stay, this is going to be my life for the rest of my life, or I can say, okay, this isn't going to happen, face reality and leave.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking, Jen, what's your answer to this question? Why do we let others define us when we know ourselves better?
Well, for me, up until recently, I wouldn't be able to answer because I feel like I haven't really known myself.
Right.
Because I spent my life living in a place where I just assumed everyone else knew me better. Like,
Yeah.
for instance, for example, my family, I felt like they knew me, I knew myself. I didn't do any kind of exploration until like 5 years ago, and I'm
Right.
about to turn 42.
Yeah.
And that's kind of sad to me. But
Yeah.
I never came in contact with any person or any book or show or sermon or anything where someone sat me down and explained all this to me, that this is
Right.
the way in a healthy situation, a healthy family, a healthy life, this is what you do.
Yeah.
So the dynamics of it, I think I always knew something was off. I was so anxious and just so insecure, and it was so uncomfortable. And I lived every day like that. That's a horrible existence.
Yeah.
It leads into so many different things. You know, I
Right.
was envious of people a lot and jealous because I felt like everyone around me seemed like they had all their crap together. And I kept thinking, how did they get here? Like, where's the frickin' roadmap? Where's the rule book? Like, I wish someone would just show me.
Right.
So it was really frustrating.
Yeah.
But recently, ask the question again if you don't.
Yeah, it's your question. So you asked the follow-up question. Oh, sorry. No, it's not. You already answered the follow-up. Why do we let others define us when we know ourselves better?
Yeah, I think right now, the stuff that's going on with my family, I'm sort of teetering. I'm getting to the point where I get it. And I get that nobody else defines me but God and myself.
Yeah.
But I still have these like sticky webs of the old
Yeah.
programming that are waiting to pull me back over the other side of the fence.
Sure.
I'm like, stop it.
Sure.
So I'm moving forward and letting go of that. But I think that pull is what Marisa says. It's wanting love and acceptance.
Sure.
And it's such a draw, you know.
Yeah.
There's such a pull, such a magnetic pull, that because we want to be accepted by other people. But
Yeah.
I'm truly am getting a crash course in accepting myself
Yeah.
and being
You are.
enough. So that's a big deal.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
Glenn, you're up next. Why do we let others define us when we know ourselves better? And I know this wasn't your situation, but if you care to answer in any way you choose the follow-up question that Jen asked, if you knew that in your pursuit to find love and acceptance from your parents, that all the work you did to fulfill that was not going to work out, would you have done everything? If you did do anything to get that, would you do it all over again?
Yeah, I'll come to that follow up in a minute.
Okay.
My issue was that I didn't let others define me, and I was probably so rebellious that I wasn't going to let them. Like, I was always in trouble at school and getting sent to the office. All my hands used to hurt, and I'd say to the principal, he'd give me some, and I'd say, "Didn't hurt." Oh, but they could only give me 6, so I knew they couldn't do too much with that.
Right.
But like an arrogant little shit, basically, and that really carried on right till mid-40s. So I mean, I didn't know myself at all. Now,
Right.
I did all the therapy manuals and all this kind of stuff, but I came to the conclusion I didn't have to know myself. I just had to be myself. I didn't need to have a 500-page book about who am I. I just said, just be who you are. That
Right.
worked
Yeah.
fantastically well. So
Wow.
so yeah, yeah, that rebellious nature still exists, but
I
in
know.
diminished proportions.
Yeah, sure. So, what do you want to say about the follow-up? Thank you, Glenn. You want to
please
answer?
read that again. Yeah.
The follow-up question that Jen asked was, if you knew that in your pursuit of love and acceptance from your family, it was never going to happen, would you have done the same things over again, or would you have strived to get that from them if you knew it was never going to come?
That's a very difficult. I don't think I can answer that one because I received unconditional acceptance and love. Just to try to put myself into that position
Yeah.
is just a bit too difficult to rationalize into a constructive answer. So
Okay.
I'll have to say, look, I have to pass. It's outside of my frame of reference.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. So
Thank you.
my answer to this question, why do we let others define us? I don't think I can do any better than what anyone else said. So I'll just agree with what everyone answered on that one. I'll just add that again, in my opinion, it's the role that we've been playing. So we let others define us because they're the director. Now, why we do it once we leave home, it's the remaining programming. It's the indoctrination that we've received, and it does take a while to break that. That's my opinion on that. Before we move to the next question, I just want to read Jamie answer the follow-up question. Jamie says, on the follow-up question, it depends on the motivation, or at least as a child, another big motivator for me at least was fear. Once I knew as an adult there would never be acceptance, I was done. Yeah, Jamie, I hear you on that. Yeah, fear is a big motivator in many arenas, not just in families, but yes, I get that. And YO Dino says, sometimes we require more of our parents than we do others. It's good to remember that parents are just people with many, many flaws, just like us. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I agree with the first part, especially that we do require more of our parents, because don't they require more from us as well than other parents in other families, or even people in school, or coaches, or whatever? Certainly more than friends. Though true, I still am in a place, at least right now, where I think it's not an excuse. Yes, they're flawed, but does that mean we just give them a pass and everything? And you're not saying that, Why Dino. I'm just adding that. Annette Sandrock, our friend, says, if you don't plan to love your children unconditionally, don't have children. It is your obligation to do better by them, since it isn't their decision to come into the world. Wow, that's true. I realize nobody's perfect, but our flaws aren't an excuse for being a shitty parent. Thank you, Annette. That's kind of what I was just saying. And then YO Dino says, lift the grip of domination that parents have on us. I think it's probably meant to read that parents can have on us by not allowing their domination and words to define us. There is a point that we must become independent of their bonds and stand as individuals. Absolutely. It's kind of what we've been saying for a while.
Yeah.
There comes a point for each person, regardless of what you went through in childhood, that you have to decide how you want to live your life.
Yeah.
Well,
I wanted to say that's something else, for some reason, I didn't even realize needed to be done. Like, right. I feel like there's so much. I'm like, where was I when I stuff? I tell you what, wasn't moved away from my in 2020, January 2020. It was very painful. I think that sort of cut the rest of the apron strings for. It's almost like I saw my family as a safety net, but the times I did that wasn't there. Crushed. It was shattered, but I kept hoping point, but I kind of got off.
Well, you didn't get off track. So what you're saying is important, but you're breaking up a little bit. I don't know if it's doing that thing again. So if you could just check that. But what I heard you say, Jen, was that you kind of saw your parents as a safety net, but when they weren't there for you, it was very disappointing. Is that accurate? I think she's switching over. So I don't know if anyone else heard what she said, but she was breaking up.
Okay, sorry. It went off. I was trying to.
You were trying to. Now I can't hear you at all. There you go. All right, try again.
I was saying to bonds from my parents. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know that was what was affecting me. Like, I felt like I had a manual of some sort or knowledge that I just know existed.
Right.
It hadn't been until recently that I'm really getting a good look at it. So it does make me curious as to how other people come to find out, that these things, these dynamics are even there. It's just not taught. Where the people I was around, the circles and it just wasn't talked about at all. So of course someone's going to think it's me.
Right.
People are talking about it and sharing about family dynamics and unhealthy patterns and all of this stuff. It's like, of course you're going to assume it's you. So I felt broken, like my entire something's wrong with me.
Right. Well, what else are you supposed to think? If these people that have been your directors all this time look at your life, the way you're living and your choices, and they're not approving of it, you think something's wrong with you, don't you?
Yeah.
I would think that you would. Thank you, Jen. Bobby Meyer says, if I let others define me, it's because I don't care if they know the real me. It's not a very important relationship if I don't take the time to show them my true self. Oh, interesting. I have to process that one a little bit. Yeah, that's good. Glenn says, I found that I felt so comfortable to give up BS and think, look, I'm not being something I'm not. If people don't like it, tough. Well, that's helpful. If you ever are able to get to that point, that's helpful. But for a lot of people, in order to get to that place, you have to break through all the programming and the dominating script that you've been reading from your whole life. And that's hard to do. I think we all agree that it's not as easy as it seems.
I think it takes time to even realize there is a script.
Right.
There are roles. And I don't know about anybody else, but coming to that realization for me, I had to stare at it and process that for a while because I just was like, what? I mean, it made sense, but I understand it kind of in order to have that radical, let it sink and process. It's just like, whoa.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen. We want to say hello to Accentuate the Narrative. He says lurking. Well, thank you for lurking with us tonight. We appreciate that. And
that's Floyd Bingo. Hi, Floyd.
Floyd. I like Floyd. He's hilarious.
Me too.
I have enjoyed all the broadcasts that you've done, Nez, but I love the ones with Jen and Floyd. It's just entertaining because there's 3 different people making comments and doing art. It's just very interesting to watch. So there you go. All right. Next question. Why do we chase people who have consistently, love this one. Why do we chase people who have consistently not given us the things that we need from the relationship with them? And I'm going to go backwards and ask Glenn first. Why do we chase people who have consistently not given us the things we need from the relationship with them? Because I'm sure you have a different perspective on this, and I want to start with that.
Oh, you guessed it correct. Take a bonus point.
All right.
I'm uncomfortable with this question.
Okay.
I'm going to say, if we don't need anything from someone, we won't be chasing them, will we? So to my mind, why do we chase them? Because we need. Well, it's sort of like it's weird because we're chasing people because we need something from them. Yeah.
Sure.
Why do we chase people who? But see, this really doesn't go off in my head constructively. I'm not going to chase anybody,
right?
Because I don't need anything from them. But if I did, first of all, I need to understand. I would like to understand what is it that I need, and I think this forms part of the situation. I think a lot of people are chasing something. They don't even know why they're chasing. They're just chasing.
Yes.
So it is confusing. But I'd be saying, in summary, give up the needing stuff from anybody, and you won't be chasing them and going through all this trauma.
Well, it's interesting when my my first I mean, I hesitate to call her this, but my first wife, when she was leaving, she said, "I want to be chased. I don't want to be caught." Never forget that she said that. So that made me think that there are people that just want the chase, like you said just now, Glenn. They want the chase, but they don't really want to catch anything or be caught. They just enjoy the chase. And there's proof of this in that people, some people, they fall in love with someone, then they leave when it grows cold, and they're chasing the beginnings of a love relationship because of in my opinion, because of the chemical dump. But it's the chase then for them, and that's it. It's not about the destination or the journey. It's just the chase.
That sounds weird. That's a bit of a deep one, Cripps.
Well, everyone.
Where does that end up? That just sort of ends up in no person's land.
Well, it does, but I think that there are people that don't, that for whatever reason, whether it's that they don't feel like they deserve anything good in their life, they're afraid of being caught or catching another person. What would happen then if I actually caught the thing I was chasing? It's
on the flip.
Go ahead.
Oh, you finish.
It's the thing that we see in Les Miserables, when the guy's chasing him his whole life, then he catches him, and then he realizes he's got to let him go because he saved his life, and then he kills himself. So for him,
his life was defined by the chase.
Correct. And it's the same thing when Troy Aikman won 5 Super Bowls, or went to 5 Super Bowls. He was interviewed and he says, what are you going to do now? When he was retiring, and he says, when I worked so hard to get to this point and I won the trophy and everyone's cheering and there's, confetti coming down from the whole crowd's going nuts, and they hand us this trophy, I thought, is that all there is? I mean, the life is about the chase to attain some goal. Then you get the goal, and then what do you do then? And this is prolific. Yeah. There are people that want to be a celebrity and an actor, and they do all the stuff to build a career in acting, and then they get there, and then they die of a drug overdose. It's not enough. And I think that's because there's something missing from their lives, and you're not going to be happy or joyful just by coming to the end of some long journey of something you're chasing. There's nothing in it for you. And once you realize that, once you've attained whatever goal you're trying to achieve, if it's about the chase, or it's about the journey, and you think it's about what you're going to attain, and then you realize you feel the same way, I mean, that's gotta hit you like cold water in the face. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what do? You get to that point, you've done all this work to get. I mean, it happened to me when I wanted to be married, and I prayed for it. Well, technically, I didn't pray for marriage necessarily. I prayed for a woman God had for me. And when I thought I had her, it wasn't anything like I had thought it would be. And for me, I realized that it was the idea of marriage and the idea of being in love that I was chasing, and not actually having it at the time. So there was a lot of disappointment in that. And then this time around, I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't chasing anything. And then it came. I don't have to chase. I wasn't chasing anyone or anything. In fact, I was resigned to not ever having it. And that's when it worked. So it's a topic for another time, but the whole idea of chasing, I think it's a good one. When we chase something, well, what is a dog that chases a car? What is he going to do when he catches it?
Eat it. I'm just kidding. I wanted to say something. Flip side, coming from a toxic perspective, someone that's toxic, the chasing, from what I've read and heard from someone that's toxic, they like when people are scrambling around trying to get their attention and love, and they give little breadcrumbs or don't give what they know the person wants, and they get some kind of power trip and thrill over that.
Right.
And that's just sick. So
it is sick. Why don't you go next, Jen, since you're talking? Why do we chase people who have consistently not given us the things that we need from the relationship with them?
Two things. I think it's hope. Hope for something that's not there, and you think it's just not there yet. I think the other thing is being brought up or learning somehow to be a person who gets their validation and their sense of identity externally.
Yeah.
So that connects and makes sense that you would, chase external things, whatever that might be, to get some sort of self-confidence or accomplishment or adoration of that stuff. So that's my answer.
I think that's a good answer. Marisa, why do we chase people who have consistently not given us the things that we need from the relationship with them?
Well, I agree with what you guys have said so far, that it's hope, and what Jen just said. And I think we also do it sometimes because we're stuck. We're stubborn. We have a bit of a thing where we don't want to admit to ourselves that we are wrong about this person. And it would be hurting our pride to admit that we're wrong about this person. They don't love us. They're never going to give us the V word that I'm going to just say validation because Glenn doesn't like it. But it's true. It's true. We have to own up to the fact that person A is never going to give us the love, the validation, the comfort, the care, the acceptance, any of that. They never were. We have to wake up and realize they were never going to do it, no matter what we did.
Right.
No matter how much we invested and put in.
Right.
And it hurts. It hurts to admit that you were wrong about all kinds of things. How much more does it hurt to admit that someone you love, and I can think of several people that I love that I had to admit they don't give a flying F about me. They really don't.
Right.
And they never did.
Yeah.
And they never will. And that's a bitter pill to swallow. And that's why I think a lot of us who go through this go through it for as long as we do. For hope, yes, and everything else. But we have to swallow that pill ourselves, that they're never going to be who we thought they were or who we'd like them to be.
Wow. Well, Marisa, I don't know if you did anything to prepare for tonight's show, but you're hitting on
answers
some gold nuggets tonight.
I lived it, honey. I lived it.
Well, that answer was so great. Just end the show right here.
Yeah. Don't you find that if a topic hits close to home, your answers are generally always better? I don't know. I think that's true. I'm going to Oh, go ahead, Jen.
Oh, no, I agree with what you were saying.
Okay, cool. I'm going to answer in just a second. I just wanted, Glenn answered, I think it's great to chase someone when in a relationship with them, but not to chase them to get into a relationship. Too much external effort, LOL. Let them come freely. Yeah, it's kind of what I was saying. Like I did the chase thing before and didn't work out very well at all. And then I wasn't chasing, and I do very much. I mean, I can always do better. I think we can all do better about chasing the person that we're with, but that was important to me. And it's interesting to chase someone when you know you don't have to. It's just interesting. Want to say hello to Debbie, who came in. She is a friend of the broadcast and has been to more episodes thus far than anyone else. Has stuck around since the beginning and is almost all the time here. And we appreciate Debbie. Glad that you stopped in to say hello. And then Celine says, we often like the idea of someone more than who they are. Celine, it's like you either heard a broadcast where I've talked about this, or you know something about me that I wasn't aware of your knowing. I've talked about this in my first marriage, that I love the idea or my perception of who she could be and not who she actually was. And we did talk about this before. We went to marital counseling, and I explained this to her, and she promised to pursue the things that I saw as red flags, and she just didn't. But it was wrong of me, though, taking responsibility for my end of it. Wrong of me to get into a relationship with someone for the chance they would become who I wanted them to be. It was totally wrong of me, and I didn't do that this time around. And Jen and I have talked about this. I loved who she was the day we met. And if she had not changed a single thing about herself, I would be joyful every day of my life to be with her. And that's just something I learned from the first time. Sometimes we have to go through bad things in order to have a better understanding of what it is that we actually want and what it is that we're actually hoping for. Believe says, welcome, Believe. We're glad that you're here. Seems like that person was in love with love because they never got it in their upbringing, and when found latched to it, but didn't know how to give it. Just take it. Yeah, that's pretty accurate, I would think. Okay, so why do we chase people who have consistently not given us the things we need from the relationship with them? I agree with what everyone said. I think, like I'm told the story of my ex-wife, a lot of it is the chase, in my opinion, and we don't know what to do when we catch it. At least for me, too, that was the thing. I had this thing built up in my mind of what marriage would be like, and it wasn't anything like I imagined. Again, interestingly enough, the marriage I have now is beyond anything I could have ever imagined in a good way. And I'm very content with that. I think it's a mistake to have all these ideas and expectations of what something's going to be. We're almost always disappointed when we actually have it. So we chase people who haven't given us anything, at least in my opinion, when we're talking about family. Again, it's the love, it's the attaboy, or in biblical terms, you're wanting the blessing from your patriarch, your father, your mother. You want them to say, you're doing a good job. I'm proud of who you are. And some people are never going to get it. I'm never going to get that. So I have gone into radical acceptance in that way before I understood what the words were or the concept, and accepting that it's just not something. It actually, hope for that for me was damaging rather than helpful. But when I let it go, I felt a lot better. It still moves me, though. I've talked about this before, but it moves me when I see a TV show or a movie where the father is telling the son something good about them. I'm proud of you. Great job. Things like that. Because I didn't get a whole lot of that. And it's okay. People say all the time, well, their parents didn't give that to them, so they couldn't give it to you. And I think that's a bunch of BS. Each person who decides to have a family, in my opinion, they're responsible for what kind of parents they are. So if they didn't learn something, they have an opportunity to learn it. It's not an excuse. Well, it's just a different generation. My parents didn't teach me that. What's that?
I was going to say, you could say that to the young adult kids too.
Yeah.
Learn it.
Learn it. That's right. Learn it. Okay. Did everyone answer that? Why do we chase people question? I think so. Okay. Next one is it hope? Okay. So from the top on why do we chase people, Jen asks, is it hope? Hope that it will change, that they will change. We'll go with Jen first. Is it hope for you, Jen? Do you hope that the person will change?
Yeah, I was. Hope is such a beautiful thing, unfortunately, in this particular application.
Yeah.
It makes me feel gross. I spin on yeah, maybe some people call it hope, not hope, being delusional. I don't know.
Hey, Jen, I'm sorry to tell you this, Jen. Your audio
So,
is really breaking up. It's so unfortunate because your answers are gold tonight too, and I want to hear what you have to say about this. But
you hear me?
yeah, let's try it again. Can you go back if you remember what you're going to say?
Things. I'm thinking about leaving on my phone to see if it's better.
Oh, is that on my phone that it's doing that?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be doing that. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what the problem is. Most times it works just fine. I don't know what the issue is. Yeah, go ahead and try that, and we'll come back to you on that.
Yeah,
Do you
leave
wanna-
the StreamYard and come back in, Jen. That works
Yeah.
for me sometimes.
Yeah, she just did that. So I'll keep an eye out for her. Believe says, wait a minute, F that. I got somewhere. I got skills. I'm done disparaging myself. Marianne was a dumb ghosting me. Her loss. I don't know who Mary. Oh, Mary Jane was a dumb ghosting me. Her loss. I'm not sure what all that is, but if you care to explain. Glenn says, even though I'm not so into validation for myself, I think spontaneous validation and appreciation of your kids is vital. Well, yeah, I would agree with that. I think validation is just that, just what I was talking about. It's occasionally saying to your son or daughter, good job. You know, that a boy, that a girl, you know, when they do a piece of art, and, you know, it's not going to be perfect when they're a child, but you put it up on the refrigerator. You do things to make the child feel good about themselves, especially in the beginning. So, I feel like it's very important, but I do understand your issue with it if it's done too much. David says, lurking too. Hi, y'all. So thank you for lurking. We're glad that you're here. And then Believe says, LOL, my first crush, Crips. Sorry, I just threw that out there for myself. Okay, that's great. You can do that anytime. Okay, Jen's still not back yet. So let's go to Marisa. In relation to the question we just asked about chasing people, Jen asks, is it hope that it will change, that they will change? What do you want to say about that, Marisa?
I can speak from my own experience where I'm hoping they will change.
Yeah.
And it's easier, I think, to push that on the other person than to look in the mirror and say, I need to change. I need to change in as much as I need to realize that this other person isn't going to change.
Right.
It makes me, I looked up the Serenity Prayer as I was reading the write-up. And just a reminder, the Serenity Prayer goes, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think the Serenity Prayer fits in perfectly with tonight's write-up.
Yeah.
We need to be, with the radical acceptance, I believe that fits into the serenity, forgiving, letting go, and moving forward, knowing what you can change and what you can't. We do have hope for those people. I know I did, for those toxic people that have us in those toxic grips of a relationship.
Mhm.
But there has to be a point where you need to have hope for yourself to be free of that kind of bondage, that kind of trap. And it is a trap. You feel stuck. I've felt stuck in those kind of relationships when you just got to call a spade and realize unless these people have some kind of magical or spiritual conversion, they're going to be who they are today, who they were yesterday, and that's who they're going to keep on being. And so it's you who has to make the change and move forward from that. So yeah, I had hope. And I even dealt with guilt because I thought, well, if I just keep at it, if I keep trying to do what they want me to do, if I keep trying to act like they want me to act, or say or not say, or hang out with or not hang out with whoever, the list goes on.
Yeah.
Like you said. And then you have to realize that there's nothing you're ever going to do that is going to please these people genuinely and make them love you and care about you for you. That's never going to happen.
Right.
So, and why would you want
have hope, but you have to. And why would you want it? Because you have an idealized notion of, well, if they were only like this, then I would be so happy. If they would only do this, or and we do the same thing. They're telling us to do things for them.
Yep.
In our own mind, I think we convince ourselves, well, if they would only do this for me, then I would be so happy.
Right.
Well, that whole bullshit toxic cycle needs to stop. And I've been on that roller coaster many times, and I'm glad I'm not on it anymore. So yeah, hope is good. And I'm not saying there aren't people who can't reconcile a marriage or a friendship or whatever. Yes, there's always some people. But for straight up toxic, narcissistic, abusive relationships, no. That the hope has to be that you break away from that and don't go back.
Right. Thank you, Marisa. That was awesome. All right, Jen, let's try you again.
Okay, test. How's it sounding?
Sounds great. So
okay, good.
is it hope that it will change, that they will change?
Yeah, and I was saying that I've always pictured hope being a good thing, and hope connected to this particular dynamic, it makes me feel very icky.
Wow.
It sort of puts a dark spin on hope because you always hear hope is a good thing.
Yeah.
But maybe we call it hope and that's not actually what it is. I don't know what else to call it, but maybe delusional. But I love the things that you said, Nez. Stalling?
That's what she said. Stalling.
Stalling, huh?
I'm sorry, but call it stalling. You're putting off the inevitable.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
Your hope is what is and what you need to do about it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Something you said, Jen. I don't think it's ever delusional necessarily. You could be just hoping in the wrong things. I don't think that your hope that your parents are going to love you and approve of you. I think that's a natural desire that kids have. Who doesn't want their parents to be proud of them and love them and respect them? And when they become an adult, to be proud of their accomplishments. And if they're struggling, to come alongside them and help them get up on their feet again. I mean, biblically speaking, that's the way it's supposed to work. Our parents take care of us. We respect them. And when they get old, we take care of them. That's biblically speaking, that's what should happen. But oftentimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus got mad at some people because they made the Pharisees and scribes, they were trying to make rules where they didn't have to take care of their elderly parents. They were putting them out to pasture, putting them on the big ice, putting them on the ice raft and floating them out to the ocean to die peacefully. That's what they were doing. I mean, I'm mixing metaphors there, but yeah, they're just, when someone gets old, we just put them out to pasture, and we don't want to take responsibility for them. And Jesus didn't like that. So, we're supposed to, that's the way I see it happening. A parent is supposed to take care of us, grow us up, get us ready for this broken, fallen world that we're about to go into, so that we can be adults, we can be autonomous, so we can we can stand on our own 2 feet. But what happened to me is they taught me they wanted me to be helpless. They wanted me to depend on them. And then when I left home, they didn't want me to depend on them anymore. But then when I would get in trouble and ask for help, then they would make it impossible. Strings and shame and guilt and stuff, when it's honestly a situation they created by their parenting. That's my opinion. But on this question, yes, I do believe it's hope. I have hoped that it will change, hope that they will change. I loved what Marisa said. I wish I could have gotten that way sooner in life, because what happened was the first 20, 30 years of my life, I wanted to do things my own way. And then in my early 30s, I was like looking at my life and I was thinking, oh, I really treated my family poorly. Well, they made me feel like that's what I had done, when in reality, every time I would leave my family and go live somewhere else, I did fine. I succeeded every single time I left. And then I would be pulled right back into the same toxic situation
when they needed your help.
When they needed my help.
When they needed your help.
Right. And I would come back into it, and then things would start to fall apart again. That's what I've learned. And part of the reason why I came back was because I was still trying to prove to them that I wasn't who they said I was. I never have been who they said I was. And it's only when I started to define who I was and just stick with that there has been real change. There's nothing wrong with hope. The Bible says hope deferred makes one sick. And Paul says in Romans 5, hope tells us to hope. That's part of salvation. We hope for things. We set our sights on hope. Hope is everything in the Christian life. We're hoping for things that are promised, and we believe that God will keep all his promises. But in the meantime, when we see the reality of the world that we live in, and we see all the destruction and hatred and violence and loss, that's what we end up with, is hope. We hope that there will be a better day. Hope is a beautiful thing, but if we're putting our hope in someone that is full of flaws and they have their own issues, I think it's futile. At least that's my opinion based on my own experience.
Good.
Just one more thing. When I stopped hoping that my family would change their view of me is when I started to heal, in my opinion.
Would you say that scripture, hope deferred makes the heart sick? Is it talking about this very thing, where you keep pushing off hope, you keep hoping and hoping when something isn't changing and it makes you heart sick?
I don't know. That's a great question. We'll have to study that more. I would want to read the whole chapter around that to get the context of it. I should have done that. I just didn't think of it before now. But we'll do that. Jen, are you on my account?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to be sure it wasn't someone didn't mirror me or something. Okay, great.
That's me.
Thank you. Well, I'll refrain from making comments. So if you see True Story Live, that's Jen. So there you go.
Oh, you can make comments too.
You sound better though, Jen. So I don't know exactly what you had to do to make that happen, but that sounds good.
Good.
Just real quick, Belief said in the chat, amen. I mean, the scriptures state a good man will leave an inheritance to his children's children that isn't limited to financial wealth. It's a spiritual, emotional, intellectual skills inheritance. Wow. I mean, yes, I agree with you, Believe. I mean, I've looked at this a lot, because my parents would say a lot of things to me that it seems they thought the Bible says this. My mom would say, teach a man to fish, or give a man a fish, eats for the day. Teach a man to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. And I was like, that's not anywhere in scripture. In fact, Jesus fed the 5,000. On more than one occasion, he helped people. He didn't say, well, go learn how to help yourself. I mean, he did say one time, heal yourself, physician. but we have to read that in context of what it was, who he was talking to. Jesus was a little sarcastic anytime he dealt with the Pharisees. And when we read things he said to the Pharisees, we have to be very, very careful to read it in the context of who Jesus is talking to and what he's saying. So, but a lot of people just cherry pick verses and say, "Oh, Jesus said, heal thyself." We should heal ourselves and work on our. We should work on ourselves, but in my opinion, it's Jesus that does the healing. It's God that does the healing, and not ourselves. It's where we get it from, in my opinion. Okay, so I answered the hope. Well, yes, that I hoped for a long time that they would change their perspective of me. Who they were trying to say that I was wrong. And in the first part of my life, I fought against it with all I had. And then later, I accepted it and I went right into proving. And every time I tried to prove, nothing ever came of it. And I finally quit doing that. And that's when I really started to heal and grow. All right, Glenn, I know you're probably answering this from a different perspective here, but when people are in this situation, of chasing and constantly they're not given the things that they need from the relationship they're in, do you think it's hope that it will change, hope that the person will change? What do you think?
I think that it's a total false reality to hope that anyone will change. But
Right.
what I am is hopeful that there can be change, but in order for that to be constructive, it's not just about them changing, it's about you changing as well. You've got to, there's always an equilibrium in a constructive situation. So you can't heap all the crap on one person. You've got to, in my opinion, you've got to look at yourself as well. And then I think once both parties do that, that is an invitation to change if people want to take on the challenge.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that there can be change, but there's got to be a process, and it's not a one-sided event of laying it onto somebody else. It's all your fault. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Agreed. Definitely agree with that. Jen, did you want to add anything to what Glenn just said?
No, I disagree.
Okay.
Very much.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you, Glenn. Okay. Is our picture of them a distortion of reality? Are we ready to see the truth, the reality of who they are and where they are at?
Yes.
Okay, you go first, Jen. You're ready. You're saying yes already. So let's hear your answer.
Yes. And it's a great question on the tail end of what Glenn just said. I definitely agree not to heap all the crap onto the other side or the one person. It all goes back to that, the only person I can control is me.
Right.
I can't control other people. So if that's the reality, it just kind of ushers you into a healthier place of owning your part, if there's a part of that, owning your stuff and deciding, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And I think for me right now in the situation I'm in is the radical acceptance. And it's interesting how we can be on our end saying, I want to be accepted, I want to be loved. But the people that are in our life that maybe aren't giving us what we need, are we accepting them as they are?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know sometimes that isn't pretty, because if there's toxicity and unhealthiness in that, it's hard, it's hard to accept that. But I think it just sets you free if you can just accept those people where they're at. Doesn't mean you have to accept abuse or anything like that. If you need to distance yourself, do it. But there's just such freedom and just seeing the people as they are, letting their actions, speak louder than words, or both, and just swallowing that bitter pill, like like Marisa said.
Yeah.
Go, where's my water?
Good one. Thank you, Jen. Before I answer this, so I just believe popped into the chat there. Proverbs 13:12. Hope deferred maketh the heart sick. At least I quoted the first part of it correctly. That's good from memory. But when the desire cometh, it is a tree of life. So if it's a proverb, reading the whole chapter probably isn't going to help much with this particular verse as to what exactly, he's talking about, but this helps to fill in the second part of it. So hope deferred maketh the heart sick, but when the desire cometh, it is a tree of life. So it feels like he's saying to me, and of course, if anyone wants to comment, I'd love to hear your perspective. It seems like he's saying that if we set hope aside, it makes our heart sick. But whatever it is that we hope for, when we receive it, it's a tree of life. And I don't think it's a mistake that he's using the tree of life, biblically speaking, which all eternal life flows from. Well, it flows from Jesus, but you get what I'm saying. Initially, it was a tree. Still is a tree somewhere. I don't know exactly where they put it, but it's there somewhere. And biblically speaking, it'll be used again. And a river flowing from the throne of God, where the tree of life will be, people drink from that water and live forever. Now, they don't need the water to live forever, but that's what it says. So I don't know exactly all the mechanics of it, but there it is. But I know that Adam and Eve, when they sinned, were kicked out of the garden because it was actually a mercy. It was God in having a conversation with the other two parts of the Godhead, saying, if they eat from the tree in this sinful condition, they'll live forever and there'll be no redemption for them. So this whole broken, fallen world that we live in is actually a mercy from God. Obviously a topic for another time, but the idea of hope being deferred, when it comes, if we hope, when it comes, it is a tree of life. And I think that's very, very true. I'll go next. Is our picture of them a distortion of reality? Absolutely. So I wanted to see my parents because there were many things that they did well. It seems like I focus more on the negative, and it makes sense that we're talking about all these topics, and I'm throwing my hat in the ring. Here's what I went through, and here's where I am. But they did good things. They gave me some things that I feel like I needed. So when that butts up against the reality and you're seeing some of the bad things that are done, you want to see past it. At least I wanted to see past it. In order to see past it, that was a distortion of the reality in which I found myself at that time. And then the question Jen asks, are we ready to see the truth, the reality of who they are and where they are at? I think I've been ready for a long time. And I'm living in that place. Now, I'm aware that even at my age, there are still tendrils of the past indoctrination and programming and my idea of who they were. But I think I'm seeing it more clearly now than I ever have. As a child, they would just tell me what to do, and all I knew was I didn't want to do all the things they wanted me to do. That's all I knew. I didn't know everything. I didn't know them from the same perspective that I do now. But yes, I do feel like it was a distortion of reality. Marisa, what do you say? Is our picture of them a distortion of reality? Are we ready to see the truth, the reality of who they are and where they are at?
Crap.
We can still hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
good. I'm pressing buttons and I'm not seeing
There
anything.
you are.
Can you see me now? Okay,
There's that
good.
beautiful
All right.
face.
Thank you. Of course, it's a distortion of reality. If we had perceived those people as what they really are and who they really are initially, then I don't think as many of us would have been caught up in those type of relationships as we have been.
Right.
I think a lot of deception was going on, whether it was them actively deceiving us and playing a part, or our own mind idealizing them, seeing them as we wanted to see them, as we wish they would be, or just be honestly being misled, believing that they were what we thought they were, of no fault of their own. So that's how I see all of that. That's
It's
about all I
beautiful.
wanted to say about that. I
Okay.
think, that's
Thank
all
you.
been said there.
Thank you, Marisa. What do you say, Glenn? Is our picture of them a distortion of reality? Are we ready to see the truth, the reality of who they are and where they are at?
Interesting question. I'm sort of struggling with it. Are we ready to see the truth? But I don't think I'd look at it that way. What a surprise. I'd be thinking in my head, it's not about any of this. It's really asking the question to myself, are, say, my parents saying what they say to me for their own personal vindication, or are they saying it to me from their genuine concern and love for their child?
Right.
I think by answering that question gives you a huge amount of reality, because I
Yeah.
think if they say, if you can say that they're acting out of genuine concern and love, that gives you an amazing amount of room to move, in my
Right.
opinion. It's just
Right.
a case of finding that place where there can be the communication that's going to get each party onto sort of, what do you call, a level playing field, or on the same wavelength.
Sure.
Not saying it's easy, but I think if the motivation is just, authentic, it just really is a damn shame to see it go down the tube. That's
Right.
what I'm saying. I think
Okay.
there's opportunity here. I'm not seeing it as negatively as some others, I think.
Okay, sure. And part of that may be, Glenn, that your childhood, your parents were different to you than some of our parents were, and it makes sense that you have a different perspective on it, given that you didn't go through a lot of the same stuff, a lot of the poor parenting. I'm not saying your parents were perfect by any stretch, but you just didn't have some of this toxic stuff that it seems like the three of us have gone through.
I think that's very fair comment, but I still think you can have a situation that's nowhere near as good as my own,
Yeah,
which I'm very grateful. But the parents can still be acting out of genuine love and concern, albeit they're stuffing it up right up when it comes to the presentation.
sure. Well,
For some reason, they just can't get it. They just can't get it to the place where it doesn't appear like they're being. It just appears like concern becomes criticism, and that's where they fall over.
yeah.
Yeah, that if you can't turn that around, you're in a pretty ordinary place. I agree.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. Since you brought that up, I'll just to back up your point. I do look at some of the things that my parents did, and I do see sometimes what seemed like a genuine desire to be good parents. Like I said, they didn't do everything wrong. I mean, I had roof over my head and clothes on my back and food in my belly the whole time I was growing up. And they had some times when they struggled financially, but to me, it didn't equate to going without a meal or, not having shoes to go to school with or anything like that. I just feel like it's more than just, physical provision that's required of parenting. But I think what Glenn's saying, I mean, we should all take that on board, that there are two entities, when you're dealing with family, you're part of it too. And we bear some responsibility in, if possible, fixing whatever's broken. And I'm happy to do that if the other person's willing to put in, and I've done it from my end. I've tried to repair relationships with all my knowledge and strength and ability. And if the other person's not willing to do it, it doesn't amount to anything. But I do believe Glenn still is right in what he's saying.
Trips, could I just add something about? I remember very clearly discussions I had with your mum, because she loved you kids like unconditionally, and she would say quite a few times. She said, "Oh, look, I really stuffed that up. I really made a mistake in the way I did stuff with you, particularly. It wasn't Shannon,
Yeah.
it was more you, because
Oh, no, not Shannon.
You're the bad guy, or the dark horse, whatever, the black sheep, whatever." And she'd say, "Oh, I made a mistake. I stuffed it up." And I said to her, "Did you tell him that?" And I can't remember the answer, so I'm really the question: did she say to you at times, "Well, look, I could have done better from a parenting point of view"?
Well, Glenn, now I understand why we had that conversation, because you brought up shit. Yes, like I have said, the last 8 years of my relationship with my mother were wonderful. I mean, not perfect, but wonderful in that we both tried to repair the relationship. And in that, she had said to me, we had a conversation one time. I believe it was on the way back from an Al-Anon meeting that I was going to support her. And of course, when I started going to the meetings, I realized it helped me too, because I am the grandson of an alcoholic, even though neither of my parents really hit the juice very hard at all. It affected my mother, and the way it affected her affected me. So I got a lot of benefit from that. But anyway, she said to me, she didn't use the word stuffed up, but she explained to me that, in her looking back at her parenting, that she did a lot of things that if she had the opportunity, she would go back and do differently. And that was very healing for me to hear. It's not something everybody gets to hear from a parent. But I was respectful, and I took it on board, and I appreciated her for sharing that with me. Of course, it didn't change anything that had already happened, but I was able to look at her from that perspective with a little bit different light and a little bit more grace, just by the very fact that she was willing to say that to me and be so open and transparent. It was really a great moment. So thank you for that, Glenn. Want to say hello to the dude saved us. We missed you, buddy. We're glad that you're here. And as the rule is, you can come and go as you please. And so we're just happy when you're here. So thank you. And also someone left. I wanted to say goodbye. Floyd left. Accentuate the narrative. Thank you for being here with us tonight. You're welcome anytime. He says, have a great night. All great conversation. Too close to home. See you all next week. Sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, sometimes what we talk about can be close to home, but we're glad that you're here, and we'll see you next time. I hope the dude saved us is doing well. He says, hey, the good vibes peeps of TSL, BRB. I'm just finishing up work here. So we're glad that you're here. Thank you. And again, thanks to Marisa for bringing a lot of these new folks in with her. And we appreciate that. And hopefully someday, Marisa, one of the 3 channels that we have created will get a lot of subscribers, and I can pay you back with a lot of extra subs over on your channel. I'll keep trying either way, because even if you get one subscription from people that I know, then I'll be thrilled. So thank you. Okay. Next question. Wait, did everyone answer that?
What was the question again? Delusional?
Yeah, distortion of reality. I think everyone did answer that one. Okay, next question. Is a relationship where you have to... Oh, this is a good one. Glenn will love this one. I'll ask him first. Is a relationship where you have to set up boundaries a relationship that is healthy, one you should stay in or continue to pursue? This might be my favorite question of all the questions Jen put up. So Glenn, you're up on this one. Is a relationship where you have to set up boundaries a relationship that is healthy, one you should stay in or continue to pursue? What do you think?
What am I going to say? You tell me. You're the guru.
I think okay. So that's fair. I think what you're going to say is that we shouldn't have to set up boundaries in a healthy relationship.
Well, I don't like the thought of boundaries in any relationship, to be honest, because I see boundaries as an impediment to getting to a place of respect. Because if people can't respect you without you putting boundaries up, how do you think they're going to respect you if you do? I mean, it's just illogical.
Well,
I want people to tell me the truth openly, there and then. I want to know what they're thinking on the table. None of this, you can't talk to me about this, you can't talk, I can't, no, we're not dealing with that one. Forget it. That's debilitating emotionally. They have to be, every time someone opens their mouth, oh, they're going to break the boundary. No, thanks. So
Well,
don't
then what
like
would you
boundaries.
suggest?
Well, yeah.
I'd suggest that if this is the case and you wish that for this relationship to be constructive, that you work out a way. And look, I'm not saying any of this is easy, but I'd be thinking, number one, if this relationship is really important, seek professional assistance, number one, because other people, an independent trained person is going to see the dynamics way clearer than two sort of estranged parties that are sitting sort of on the outside. And then, I just think it needs some kind of fresh outlook. I know it sounds easy, but it's not, obviously. Right. Because when people just continually do this kind of stuff and you start, it's every, like if you're walking into a room with someone that does this, first thing that happens is you get tensed up, you got your back up, you're waiting for something to be said, and it's a horrible feeling. Yeah. I've done it myself. Yeah. I don't like it. So you've really got a choice. As far as I see it, either you say bye-bye, or if it really means something, you've got to just either seek help or just find a way, talk to other people, do something. But I think, as Sandra would say, there's always 10 answers to every question. Mm-hmm. I think maybe the answer may well be, or something you haven't considered yet, or some action you haven't taken. So I don't like the thought of family relationships breaking down. It's just, because I've had it so good and I've been privileged, I see what it can bring. So, look, yeah. It's hurtful. It's hurtful to hear these stories from other people.
Yeah.
Because I know it. I know that there's no bad people involved that I can see. I mean, okay, there's the ones that you might say are all this narcissism, but just putting aside, just a general run-of-the-mill parents who care about their kids, and but yet somehow it's worked into a place of distance and estrangement. I think that's just such a waste. So I'd be saying, look, I know I'm rambling on. I don't really mean to, but I think it's important.
I don't think you're rambling.
Not give up.
Yeah.
Just try to sit back and just think, what are the possibilities and what can you do about it?
Okay. Thank you, Glenn. Yeah. Jen put in the chat, if you know that they won't change, why even try to get a third party in to help? Is that delusional as well?
Yeah, but you're making an assumption.
I don't think Jen's making an assumption.
Oh, well, how can you know they won't change?
Well, Jen, didn't you invite your mother to counseling? And on the day of, she said, what did she say? What was her answer? Because you tried to do this with her.
Yeah. She said she got a word from God to accept the situation.
Right. And here we are still talking about this stuff and nothing has changed as a result.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't see that comment until just now. If you don't know that if you know they won't change, I'm sad to hear that. I'm quite flabbergasted, actually, because I know your parents, Jen, of course, and I think they're good people. No one can deny that they're not have genuine thoughts and concerns for you, but obviously there's just something screwed up here. And it's just like each party doesn't comprehend what their role is in a parent-child relationship.
Right.
And I think that if that could be identified, it could be helpful.
Yeah. Well, so just growing up with a mother who was a therapist and reading all the books and going through therapy myself and several groups and one-on-one counseling. And I think, there's a lot of quote unquote Christians that disagree with this. They think that all psychology is of the devil. I think they're delusional. I think God creates certain things to help us understand ourselves better and understand the world that we live in. And of course, I would prefer Christian counseling than I would like secular counseling. There are some arguments to be made about that. But I think that your answer is, getting a third party in many cases is absolutely helpful. Even when before Jen left her ex, even though it was an abusive relationship, the suggestion from me was, invite him to counseling. I mean, she was willing to do everything she could do to save the marriage, but she finally had to come to the conclusion that it wasn't going to work. And I don't think that's delusional. I think she made the best decision for her because she had tried for 14 years. So no counseling was going to help because he wasn't willing to see counseling.
Yeah,
But
sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to say, but that is a classical case where Jen was in an abuse situation and being taken advantage of. But I'm more thinking about when people have a good heart and they just have genuine concern. I mean, look, no one says this is easy. None of us. And I full well understand sometimes you've got to have radical acceptance and you've got to do what's required.
Right.
100%. There's no answers really, is there?
Yeah, it's hard.
It's extremely difficult.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm emotional just thinking about what this must be like for people who have to deal with this every day.
Yeah.
It's distressing.
Well, that's why Jen wrote the write-up, because as we've talked over the past several weeks on these topics, she's right in the middle of making some really tough decisions. So you're up on this one next, Jen, okay? Is a relationship where you have to set up boundaries in a relationship, is that healthy? And is it one where you should stay or continue to pursue?
First part, is it healthy? I mean, I kind of liked Glenn's answer where it was like, if there's love and respect, I think that's what he said, that there shouldn't be a need for boundaries. Correct me if I quoted you wrong, Glenn. But I disagree with your other point.
Yeah.
I think it's good for people to have boundaries, to an extent. Like I know, Jason, you've said about your mom's boundaries with barbed wire.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm still kind of in the question on this.
Right.
All right. Good.
Welcome
Okay,
back,
hey,
Marsha.
welcome back. It was the StreamYard was roboting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does
up
that.
tonight. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say, because my boundaries were crossed by a family member
Right.
multiple times,
Yeah.
it doesn't make me want to be in a relationship with them. I don't feel safe.
No.
And the whole reason I didn't want to put up a boundary. I felt I had to, because the conversations that they kept coming up with were very condescending, judgmental, assumptions kept being made.
Yeah.
The way it was approached was so degrading to me. And I was insulted during the conversation.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I felt attacked. I do feel like I was in a way being attacked. And so I set up the boundary because I thought, I don't want to go down this road with you anymore.
Right.
Or put myself in the position of being insulted again and being
Right.
disrespected and
Yeah.
treated like a child. Now I felt like, okay, we'll set this boundary, because it seemed at the time this is the only area where there's like contention from them, and I guess me too, that I thought things would be fine. I was like, every other area is fine, it seems. So when the boundary was crossed, I mean, it did give me more information about the person, I felt. But that's part of the hard pill to swallow, because it's like, okay, for me, it's sort of an indicator that this person's not safe to have a relationship with, because they're not. Because here's the thing, I could understand someone being worried, someone that you love being worried about you, or being worried about someone that you care about. But if you bring something up and it doesn't go well, I feel like someone with a brain would know not to do it again. So then it starts making me think, what's the ulterior motive here? Like, what's going on behind the scenes that's making this person do this again when it didn't go well the first time and there was a boundary set?
Right.
It snowballs into this whole cantankerous situation.
And to use God, just to forgive the interruption, but to use God in doing that too, and say, well, God told me to cross your boundary. I just have to tell you this thing that we just talked about in a devotional.
Yeah. So yeah, that's frustrating. And that
Yeah.
felt even more
Insidious.
insidious, but that's not the word I was thinking of. It felt more of a jab.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And Jason and I were talking about this, and it's like, I have a relationship with God. He can talk directly to me.
Yeah.
Now I understand sometimes we have pride and we're stubborn, and you know, I want other people to speak into my life, but I don't think God would speak to me like this person spoke to me.
Well,
I
that's
don't,
what Glenn just said in the chat. Why would God say that stuff?
yeah. And I don't think God would encourage someone, a parent, to disrespect their child by crossing a boundary.
Right.
I don't think he works like that. And I kind of felt it was manipulative, back to the other week's article or write up. I felt it was manipulative because who's going to argue with God? You know, if God told someone to cross your boundary, it kind of puts you in a position of, it's like, I'm not in your head or heart. How do I know that God actually spoke to you, or you're just making stuff up?
Right.
But it sort of puts the kibosh on you arguing with them because it's
Yeah.
God, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Thank you, Jen.
it's a tough
Excuse me,
situation.
Jen. A quick question:
Yeah.
did you feel more disrespected? Okay, can you just take two scenarios? One where you had no boundaries with them, one where you had the boundaries, and each time they got crossed, do you think you felt you would feel more disrespected when they crossed your boundaries? Because is this the real issue? The fact that they crossed your boundaries rather
Oh,
than what they said?
yes. Yes.
Okay, so if you had no boundaries and they said what they said and just said, well, look, say what's on your mind, spit it out, would you have felt as disrespected? No, surely not.
That's a good point.
Well, let her answer, because before
No,
the boundary was put in, there was obviously a reason why she felt like it was necessary to put the boundary up, because they were saying these ridiculous things.
no, I'm just talking about it in terms of respect.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt even more disrespected once the boundary was up and it was crossed.
Yeah. It's natural that you would. You take the time to come to the table with someone and say, hey, this isn't working out for me. Here's what happened. Here's what you said. Here's how it made me feel. And I don't want that to happen anymore. I can't expect you to change, but what I can do to protect myself is tell you that I'm not going to be having conversations. Don't ask me about this and that. And they can say yes, they can say no, they can say we're going to think about it or pray about it or whatever. But in the end, in my opinion, looking at it from the outside, if any person has to set up a boundary to protect themselves and the people then cross over the boundary, that's further disrespect and further proof. It's a further red flag that regardless of whether it's intentional or unintentional, that person is not a healthy, safe person, in my opinion. So,
Jen, would it be? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, welcome, bottle caps. Go ahead, Marisa.
Welcome, bottle caps. Jen, is it correct in your specific situation that you were twice insulted, not only by the subject matter and specifically what they said, but the fact that they went there at all, again, after you asking them not to?
Yeah, that would be correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. From my perspective, is a relationship where you have to set up boundaries in a relationship, is that healthy? That is healthy. One you should stay in or continue to pursue. Like I said, I do agree with Glenn's idea of seeking a third party. Completely agree with that. If you have the means by which to do that and the person is willing to go, I don't see how it's ever damaging. I mean, you can get a bad therapist, but if that doesn't work, if you see that, I think they're really easy to spot. You can find someone else. There are good therapists out there, or a pastor, or whatever. If you don't want to see a therapist, you think it's of Satan, then you can go meet your pastor. But some pastors are of Satan as well. But that's another topic. But in my opinion, okay. So Jen mentioned what I say about boundaries. I cannot think of one single boundary I have with Jen. Because our relationship is based on transparency, openness, and being able to come to the table if we see something that annoys us or irritates us or could become an irritation. we say it to the other person and we talk about it. And, it's hard to change things. So you might say, hey, I don't want you to do this anymore. And then it happens again. And the way the person reacts when that happens tells you everything you need to know about the person. If they're apologetic and say, yeah, I'm working on it, I'm sorry about that, and you move on, and then whatever it is that you've asked them not to do anymore, it doesn't happen anymore. That's the way I hope it should be. I would hope that I don't have to set up boundaries in a relationship. That's my hope. But that is not the reality in some relationships. And why does it always have to be with families? But it seems like most times it is with families. That's the problem. I mean, how many stories I've sat in rooms and heard people tell of when the person talking realized that they were in a toxic or dysfunctional relationship within their family, and they went about to do things to change it, and all hell broke loose. Because people don't like when someone breaks out of their role and they put their script down and say, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not playing this person that you want me to be. They don't like it. And to me, that's the epitome of unhealthy. You should respect a person enough to, if they want to change, even if it's just their perception that if we're totally wrong and you're not given a script and you're not playing some role, but you come to a point where you're saying, I want to change who I am. How different would it be if the people in your family or the people in your life said, well, what can we do to help? That sounds great. What do you want to do? Who do you want to be? Where do you want to go? And we're here to help you. Might be hard. We might have to change some things. It might take us a while to adjust to the changes that you're making, but we're here for you. I mean, what I just said sounds like a ridiculous fantasy to me. And it shouldn't be like that. It should be that we tell someone else who we're going to be and we're working on it and they support you. Like using Jen's situation, I would have liked to have seen her parents respect her boundaries, and not only that, but support her in watching her grow and change and recover from a 14-year abusive relationship with someone that didn't respect her or love her at all. When she left that relationship, I would have loved for them to say, let's sit down and talk about what you went through. We want to understand. We just want to understand. Are you willing to talk to us about it? And of course, she probably would have said, absolutely, I'll talk to you about it. And then just listen. And then cry and hug or whatever you got to do, but then say, how can we help you moving forward? And that's not what I saw at all. I mean, there's the lip service of, oh yeah, well, come live with us for a while. But then the rules started to come out, and the time limit on how long she could be there unless she had a full-time job with benefits. So they're setting up their own, they're not calling them boundaries, but they're setting up their own boundaries. And those boundaries were probably the best thing that ever happened to Jen, because she was like, well, I'm moving. Bye-bye. And she says it was one of the best things that ever happened to her, getting away from those people in that town. And it wasn't just her parents. Obviously, it was where her ex lived, but there were a lot of reasons to move away from there. And that's when she really, in my opinion, that's when she really started to grow and change. Sometimes the answer is to get away from the people that refuse to accept you for who you're becoming. And I don't like it. I wish we didn't have to do that, but it just seems like that's the reality that we live in the world today. So for me, yes, idealistically, Glenn's concept is 100% correct. We shouldn't have to set up boundaries. We should be able to be open and just hear the truth from the other person. And we tell the truth. But when that doesn't happen, that's where sometimes boundaries have to go up. And if they go past the boundaries, to me, again, it's more proof that the person is incapable, at least at present, to be respectful and loving and kind and considerate in the relationship. They might be in their own heads the best parents in the world. But to me, the actions speak louder than the words. They can say, oh, we love you. We love you. We're here for you. But when it comes down to it and you're looking at the reality of the situation, they're not there. So in summation, in a relationship where you have to set up boundaries, is that relationship healthy? One you should stay in or continue to pursue? It's a hard question to answer without more detail, but I would say that initially, if you have to set up a boundary in a relationship, it doesn't necessarily mean the relationship is unhealthy. But if you do have to set up a boundary and they continue to cross over it, it's not healthy. Just to me. I mean, clear up and down. All right, Marisa, is a relationship where you have to set up boundaries a relationship that is healthy, one you should stay in or continue to pursue?
Well, when dealing with narcissists specifically, the word across the board from all the experts, from Dr. Romney to Angie Atkinson to Dr. Les Carter, is no contact.
Right.
And that can involve moving to a different town, a different state, what have you.
Yeah.
I think you have to look at the relationship. What is the fruit of that relationship? Is it somebody that produces good things and puts them in the relationship, brings out good things in you, and you just have occasional difficulties? Or is it an ongoing toxic situation? And if it's an ongoing toxic situation where I'm sorry, Glenn, but when there's no validation for you, when there's nothing you can do to make these people happy, or they are not growing and changing or wanting to grow and change, or even acknowledging the need for self-reflection and desiring growth and change, when they think they're perfect and they've got no problems and everything's your fault and everybody else's fault, that's a toxic person, and you are not going to change them.
Right.
They have to want to be somebody different than that.
Correct.
And I think I said in a previous episode that boundaries, I would say any good boundary to have across the board, at least for me, is that nobody is going to be physically abusive to me anymore. Nobody's going to treat me the way that I had been treated previously, meaning I'm not going to put myself in that situation. And if that starts to come up, walls go up, I'm out.
Audi 5000.
Yeah, we're not going to. We've learned lessons, and we don't need to repeat.
Right. Gotcha.
Horrible mistakes over and over again. But I also agree with Glenn that ultimately a healthy relationship should be completely transparent without the boundaries. There shouldn't be anything that's taboo for discussion. I think it's ridiculous when, especially a best friends or a couple or a married couple specifically, are saying, well, we can talk about whatever you want except for A, B, and C. Because God help you if you bring those up, I'm going to blow up and have a fit, or I'm going to do this or have a behavior, or I'm going to take off, or fill in the blank with the behavior.
Right.
So yeah, that's how I feel about that. Have a personal boundary for yourself to never accept abuse from anyone, and never lose that. But in the dynamics of an interpersonal relationship that's healthy, no, I agree. There's, should be transparency and honesty, and you should be comfortable and feel safe with that person. And there shouldn't be anything that you'd be afraid to talk about.
Right. Okay. Quick follow-up, Marisa, before we move on. And that is that I agree with your rule about, someone hurting you physically, but does it make a difference to you if it's not physical, but it's emotional or spiritual abuse?
Abuse is abuse, and none of it is acceptable.
Thank you. Jen, I'm going to ask this one to you first. Is a relationship where you feel you have to continue to fight for the real you to be seen, heard, and respected and loved one you should remain in? Why or why not?
So I'm kind of in the middle of this in the question still.
Okay, that's all right.
On one hand, I think, okay, we should all just be ourselves.
Right.
And if other people don't accept us, we can just choose not to hang around them.
Right.
Sure. If it's family, maybe limited.
Right.
Because I think we all should have a support system around us that delight and who God's created us to be.
Amen.
This is a difficult question. I mean,
It
I some of it depends on the circumstances. Some of it depends on the level of unhealthy, or if there's abuse going on. I mean, we can choose not to hang out with people, you know, and then choose to hang out with the people that do see us and respect us, love us, accept
Right.
us, that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Did that answer that okay?
Yeah, you answered it fine.
Okay.
It's a difficult question. I agree. You'd have to have more parameters
Find a
defined,
clear-cut answer. Yeah.
clear-cut answer. So you did great. I'm going to go next on this one, and maybe this will fill some things in a little bit, I hope. I agree with what you said, Jen, that we should always be ourselves, but a lot of people aren't. A lot of people discover later in life that they've been, like you're discovering, and you saying that you haven't felt confident in who you are, and you're depending on other people, for instance, to tell you who you are. And then when they don't do it, then you're frustrated. So you have been working on defining yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best place a person could be in, regardless of how they were raised or what they're going through. And you don't have to, in our relationship, certainly, and then with the support group that you mentioned, you don't have to be anyone else but yourself, and you're accepted for that.
Yeah.
So in answer, looking at it from that perspective, if you have to fight for the real you, fight to be seen, fight to be heard, fight to be respected, and fight to be loved all the time, if that's what's happening, to me at least, that's not a relationship I have any interest in. Now, if there's some of that, like Marisa was suggesting, if there's a little bit of that, if for the most part, these are healthy people that love and respect you and all that, then the question doesn't apply. We're talking about if you're finding that you have to fight for all these things that should be part of a healthy relationship, then it's not one that you should stay in. And you mentioned limited contact in the psychobabble narcissistic world. They call that gray rocking. And then there's no contact. I'm sure there's variations of those things. I'm sure in different situations, but it's either limited contact or no contact. And each person has to decide for themselves what's going to be the best for them.
Yeah.
And I don't think it should be criticized if a person decides they need to stay completely away from a family because they're finding that they have to, they're not being seen, they're not being heard, they're not being respected, they're not being loved. Then that's what they have to do. If it's limited contact because of all these things aren't there in the relationship, then that person can decide for themselves whether or not it's worth it for them. What are you going to say, Jen?
Oh, I just had a thought pop in my head about boundaries real quick that I wanted to share.
Yeah.
I guess a person could have boundaries for themselves that aren't spoken out. It's like a personal boundary. And so say my situation, if somebody brings up a topic that upset you the last time and there wasn't a boundary spoken out to that person that did it the first time.
Yeah.
You can have the internal boundary and just not be a part of the discussion.
Right.
Or get up and leave or hang up or whatever. Just not, but for me, it's been hard because when it's parents, there's that whole respect your elders, and it's almost like I do feel like a kid when those particular conversations come up. And I feel like I have to sit through it.
Yeah.
And so that's something I'm working on right now with anybody, not just the situation I'm dealing with family,
Right.
is having my own agency and self-worth. I don't know what you would want to call it, but just the know-how to know that you don't have to sit through something that's upsetting or
Right.
makes you feel small.
Right.
You can get up and leave.
Sure. It's
So
your choice to do
yeah.
that if you need to. Okay, Glenn, you're up next on this one. Is a relationship where you feel you have to continue to fight for the real you, to be seen, heard, respected, and loved, one you should remain in? Why or why not?
Whoop. Is he still there?
Sorry, I didn't click the button.
That's okay.
I said, count me out. Don't have the energy for that crap.
Right.
I mean, that doesn't mean I would be disrespectful to someone like that. If I see them in the street, I'll be polite. I'm
Right.
not going to, like I think I said to someone, I'm not going to cross to the other side of the road
Right.
to avoid them. I'll be polite,
Okay.
but I'm not there for sure. And I just want to add something to what Jen said about
Sure.
the unwritten boundaries. Like a good example was if I say something to yourselves off the show and I say, well, it's private or
Yeah.
confidential, and then you came. So to my mind, that's just a boundary of you are going to show a respectful boundary. You're not going to go on to TSL and blab out personal stuff.
No.
I don't have to say that's a boundary. That's just respect.
Well, yeah, but
I don't think
exactly, Glenn. But if the things that we consider common respect and decency that should exist in a relationship do not exist, and you're not saying this, but are we supposed to just lie to ourselves and delude ourselves?
Absolutely not. You can't lie to yourself. I mean, oh look, that'd be stupid if I was going to say that. I think it just, I just can't. I can't fathom why people just do it for a
Yeah.
start. But if it does exist, and which it obviously does, well, I've only got to read the chat and listen to yourselves. It's rampant.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't put up with it either.
Right.
I'm
Gotcha.
not going to sit there and cop it. Why would I?
Yeah.
No
Right.
way.
All right. Well, thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Marisa, what do you say?
Read it again, please.
Absolutely. As a relationship where you feel you have to continue to fight for the real you, to be seen, heard, respected, and loved, one you should remain in. Why or why not?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. These horrible toxic relationships have us doing all kinds of contorting, gymnastic, acrobatic things to make ourselves into whatever these people say we should be,
Right.
to change us from who we really are, because they obviously don't accept us for who we really are.
Right.
No, you want to be around people who accept you for you,
Yeah.
acknowledge that not only are, you are imperfect, but they are imperfect as well. All of us are. None of us are perfect.
Right.
And there, like Glenn had said about, there needs to be that feeling of transparency and trust and comfort, and no boundaries when it comes to discussing anything.
Yeah.
There really shouldn't be
Right.
that kind of situation where you feel like, oh, I've got to behave a certain way or else the shit's going to hit the fan. No,
Yeah.
no eggshell walking. No,
Yeah.
if you're walking on eggshells, you're in a toxic situation, if not a toxic relationship. So, I
Right.
mean, there's a time walking on eggshells as a way of life. That's not cool and not acceptable. So,
Right.
yeah, there's my answer.
Thank you, Marisa. Appreciate that. Okay. We've gone on quite long here, so we appreciate anyone that's still with us.
Hold
We're
on a
gonna-
minute. I want to shout out What's Truth. He came in. He's an awesome channel. Hi, What's Truth? Thank you.
What's truth? Awesome. Welcome. The next question is a little like the first one. It's just simply, in a relationship where people refuse to let you be you, allow you to be separate from them, why do you think people do this? Does anyone want to answer that question, or we can move on to the next one if it's too similar to the one above? I mean, it's a different question, but does anyone want to take a stab at why people refuse to let you be yourself? It's a good question.
I'll
Why
answer
do
real
you-
quick. Just
why do you
because
allow it?
people, toxic people. Oh, okay. Why do you allow it?
Yeah.
You desiring validation, desiring love, desiring that whatever you desire from those people that you have idealized in your mind should be a certain way towards you, and they're just not. But maybe, just maybe, if you do what they want you to do, then you'll
Yeah.
get what you want. And that really never happens. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean
Yeah.
to cut you off.
You're good, Gabe. That's fine. All good. I'll
Wh-
let it pass.
Okay.
What do you think, Jen? Why do you think people do this?
Ow. I just slammed my head on the wall by accident. Ow.
Oh,
Yeah, I was gonna kind of in the same vein as Marisa. I think there are people out there that, for whatever reason, they have a hard time. Well, I don't know if this. No, I might have read this in the chat. I'm sorry, it might not be what Marisa said, but some people have issues with seeing other people happy or growing. Um, especially if it's if there is a role going
Yeah.
on within the relationship and the person's changing and they're having a hard time with it. It could be nefarious. It could be just where they're at in their own growth.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's my
Perfect.
guess with some of them. I know it's not all of them.
All right. All right. So we have just basically two questions left. So we'll get to those. The next one is, and what does it do to a person when they are continually questioned or judged by those they love? And I'll go first on this one, and I'll make it a fairly short answer. I have found it to be completely dehumanizing and debilitating when that happens. And I've grown up with a lot of this, being continually questioned and judged, and it never led to anywhere good for me. It made me want to go away, and I should have stayed with that impulse and stayed away. Maybe down the road, after some time had gone by and I'd gotten myself into a place where I was autonomous on my own, and I realized that I didn't need to keep coming back. I didn't need to prove I could be my own man. If then and only then, possibly could I have come back into the family, and I would have been able to sustain a relationship with these people, whether they judge me or not. I mean, I feel like that's the goal,
Yeah.
is to be autonomous, be your own person, and then it doesn't affect you in the same way when you are around these people that continually judge you and question you. What do you think, Jen? What does it do to a person when they're continually questioned or judged by those they love?
I think somebody that is not in a healed place, it just destroys you. It just gaslights you. It makes you doubt your own reality and your own senses and
Yeah,
your own opinion about what you see through your own eyes and what you're experiencing and
right,
thinking and believing. And it kind of just erodes away at the foundation of a
yeah,
person.
right,
But I agree with you. I think the goal for anybody that's wanting to get healthy would be to be in a place where you're strong enough in who you are and in your own self-acceptance,
hmm
that you could be around any of that crap and it just wouldn't bother you, like
right,
Glenn. And you know,
right.
it's interesting in my own growth, I have gotten that way with outside people,
Yeah,
but it's the inside people where it's still
yes,
finding a chink in my armor. And it's not as
yeah,
bad as it was when I was younger,
right,
but it's still ouch.
yeah.
So I'm working on it.
Thank you, Jen. Marisa, what does it do to a person when they're continually questioned or judged by those they love?
it brings you pain. It brings you inner conflict. It causes you to doubt yourself or be dispositioned for
Right,
self-doubt. For the narcissist who's doing that to you, you're giving them fuel. All of your pain, all of your struggles and frustrations, your confusion,
yeah,
that is feeding them. What it does
Yeah.
to you is drains you of your energy, drains you of your will and your desire to grow, sometimes to
yeah,
live.
right,
Sad to say, there's people that are beat down so far in one respect or another that they decide
yeah,
to end their own life because they can't take it.
right, right,
And
exactly.
I just want to say right now, if anybody's feeling that way, there is help out there, and the suicide hotline is always available on the phone, online. So don't ever think that ending your own life is the only way out of a toxic relationship or
Right.
abuse.
It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem, I've heard people say. We're going to ask Glenn thank you, Marisa. We're going to ask Glenn in just a second, but Belief put in the chat, I think those narc alpha types like competition and want to win over you And when they try to control you and are successful, they merit themselves in their mind like they did something worthwhile. That you nailed it, Believe. You nailed it. That's my opinion as well. They take great delight in winning over you and beating you. These games that they play, they're just gleeful. It seems some of them at least are openly gleeful. There's even a term for the look on these people's faces, duper's delight. They delighted in duping you. And when you realize it, or they realize that you're duped, they can't help but smile. It's ridiculous. And people that have never heard, I don't know if there's anyone out there that haven't at least heard of narcissism and these things. They think we're crazy. You mean a person smiles? They physically have a look on their face when they feel like they've duped someone? Yes, there are videos of people showing what that smile looks like. And I've seen it. I've seen it up front and close and personal. People that went over on you and they're smiling or laughing about it. It's horrible. What do you think, Glenn? What does it do to a person when they are continually questioned or judged by those they love? What do you think?
Well, in my case, I'd say one of two things. It makes me want to go to the bottle shop and buy a big bottle of gin. And the number two, it makes me think I could send them a brown snake for Christmas present.
Right. Yeah.
Like, this is bonkers, honest to goodness. Like what you just said, like someone would take delight in another person's distress.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, how do you, it's just beyond
Yeah, how
it.
do you reconcile that in your mind? It's insane.
Well, I can't because it's just outside my comprehension that anyone could do that. But obviously, it happens. It's common. It's cool.
So,
Sake, maybe.
Yeah.
Ned?
So now we come to the answer: radical acceptance. What is radical acceptance? It's when you stop fighting reality, stop responding with impulsive or destructive behaviors when things aren't going the way you want them to, and let go of bitterness that may be keeping you trapped in a cycle of suffering. Has my lack of radical acceptance of my own family kept me in a cycle of suffering? The answer is a resounding yes. The hope of what I wanted to be there was so strong that I couldn't face reality. It was too painful. And in order to feel more included or loved, I've perpetually remained in a role within my family in order to, in a twisted way, be of some use to them and for them to be of use to me. Crazy, right? But this has kept me stuck. I am now breaking out of the role I accepted for myself. In my fear of not wanting to be alienated from my family, I have come to realize I am and have been. I now understand that if being myself, trusting myself, and living my life the way I see is best for me, alienates me from anyone, that isn't by my choosing. So what does radical acceptance give us? I believe it gives us freedom to not be so focused on what other people are or aren't doing, freedom to be ourselves, freedom to live our own lives and to discover what that even looks like for ourselves. So given all that, the last couple questions that we have, do you have any area in your life where you need to apply radical acceptance? Is there anything you are afraid to really look closely at? Why is that? And just to be fair, I'll go first on this one. I think as much as I've worked in my life to try to be in a place where I'm radically accepting the reality of the situation, if I'm assessing myself, I would say 9 out of 10 that I have been in a place of accepting things the way they are. But that little 10 number that I can't quite reach is where I struggle. It's still having that deep desire in my heart to want to love people and to feel loved in return. But the more I work on myself, the less I need that. And it shouldn't be that way. It doesn't matter if I think it shouldn't be that way. It is. That's where the reality comes. When you ask yourself the question, do I need to set up a boundary? Should I have to? Well, if you're asking yourself those questions, there's obviously a reason why you're doing so. And it may come down to this place of radical acceptance. No longer wishing that a person would change, knowing you can't change them, and deciding that for your mental health, for your healing, for your growth, for your recovery, it means accepting them for who they are. As Jen said, getting over the bitterness, getting over the anger, getting over the frustration, or whatever it may be. And it might mean no contact. It might mean limited contact. But aren't you worth it? Aren't you worth doing whatever it takes to make sure that you are safe? You can still love people. You don't have to be in a relationship with them. You can love them from afar. You can see them from far off and go, I love you. I wish the best, but you're not in a place to accept me for who I am. And that's unacceptable. I can't do it. I can't continue to have you question my choices, question my spouse's choices, and pile all your own worries and fears on us. I have my own worries and fears. I don't need yours. I don't need it. It's not helpful. It doesn't make me go, oh, well, you're afraid I'm going to do this. You know, my mom saying I'd end up in a ditch. She told me that. And it made me angry. It really did, because I couldn't believe that she didn't know me better than that. So she was putting her fear onto me, or trying to at least. And I do believe it came from a good place, that she was worried about me. I get that. But it didn't help for her to tell me that, to know that she thought of me that I would end up in a ditch, dead. It wasn't helpful. So not saying we can control people's fears, but they don't need to tell us what their fears are for us. So sometimes you just get to a place where radical acceptance is the best answer for you. Is there anything you're afraid to really look closely at? I sure hope not, for all this talking that I do on this broadcast and talking to other people and giving advice and all the conversations I've had. If there was something that I was really afraid to look closely at, then I would have a lot more work to do. But things come up sometimes, and it might be scary. I might have a little bit of fear, but it doesn't keep me, hopefully, from looking at it closely when they come up. Marisa, do you have any area in your life where you need to apply radical acceptance? Is there anything you're afraid to really look closely at? Why is that?
I went through this. I went through this with my family quite a long time ago. And the only family I have around me now are my children, and I'm not talking about them, but I'm talking about older members of my family, right, that are still alive. The good ones pretty much are dead, or they just don't. They're so far removed they don't know what's going on. So,
wow.
But I had to go through that with my family and just accept they're going to be who and what they are. Nothing I've ever said or done, or not said or done, has moved them one iota to make any kind of positive change, to reach out in love and acceptance of me, or my choices, or my lifestyle, or my children. Their toxicity is keeping them from the blessings of love from me openly in a healthy relationship, and they're keeping themselves away from the love of my children. And if your pride and your agenda and your manipulations are so much more important than the love of my children, then you are very sick and disturbed, and all I can do is love you from a distance and pray for you. I had to go through this with people I used to know, with my trolls that I used to think were my friends. You just have to, like you just said, again, you can love these people from a distance. Just because these people may not care for me in family or former friends, I still love these people. And I pray for them. And as a believer, I lift them how to deal with them. But you don't have to have a front row seat to their abuse. or their
That's it.
mouth or their words or their opinions or their criticisms or anything. You don't have to sit there and watch the show.
Right.
They're going to do what they're going to do.
Right.
You need to focus on what you're going to do and live a much happier life without them right there.
Exactly. Thank you, Marisa. We're going to hear from Jen last on this one, and this is the last couple questions here. So, Glenn, do you have any area in your life where you need to apply radical acceptance? Is there anything you're afraid to really look closely at, and why is that?
Yeah, but and I don't want to downplay the significance of everything that's been said here, but I've got to say my cooking skills. I really don't want to look closely at it because the comments I get from my lovely wife might well be true.
Oh, wow. I think that was perfect timing. This topic has been a little heavy in some ways, but it's a wonderful topic, and I hope it helps someone. But yeah, that was perfect timing, Glenn. So you need to apply radical acceptance to your cooking, and it's something you're afraid to look closely at. I get it.
Literally.
Boy,
No.
yeah, it may well. I don't like to admit the truth because I think I might have to put in more effort.
Great.
I just have Sandra. You got no idea what goes on here with that.
Right.
How was it, dear?
Yeah.
Shit.
Right. Well, you're in that sort of relationship where you both come to the table, and she's open.
Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? Yeah, even I did even last night. She said, "Well, yeah, it wasn't good, whatever," but I did be a good person, nice person, and I offered to get her something else, which I did. So there you go. I didn't say get it yourself next time.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm not all bad.
No, you're not. Thank you, Glenn. All right, Jen, you're last on this one for the final question. Do you have any area in your life where you need to apply radical acceptance? Is there anything you're afraid to really look closely at, and why is that?
Yeah. Radical acceptance with my family. I have really worked on, like I had said earlier, regarding, outside people that aren't blood related. But when it comes to family, it's been very interesting. And I find it fascinating that the very same thing I was doing in my marriage, I had to sort of be delivered from, and had to have somebody enter my life and say, okay, here's this bitter pill. I'm going to encourage you to swallow it, and so that's what I'm doing right now with my family. And it's hard. It's really hard. But I can logically recognize the benefits of the radical acceptance. And so I'm willing to go through the pain and the sadness that comes with that to get to the other side where there's freedom. Because that's what I want. I don't like feeling like this. It's so gross and uncomfortable, and, it affects me physically sometimes. So it's just not fun. And if radical acceptance can get me to that point to, no matter what happens, I'm good. This is like that. It's like what is it? Not the last hurrah. What is that phrase or that movie? Where it's like the last line, the last thing I need to deal with well, I mean, that sounds very arrogant. I don't mean it to sound that way, but I feel like I've healed in so many areas, and this, of course, it's going to be the last one, or for what I see currently would be the last one.
Right.
Right. Just like,
we hope it's the last one.
I saved the hardest for last, but the best, because what's on the other side of it is it's good things. And already, I've had breakthrough and freedom in so many areas, and it's been very sweet. And even to be able to look back on the hard parts of it and be grateful, because these hard things I've gone through, they're the stepping stones of how I've been able to get back to myself,
yes,
and discover myself in a healthy way. non-narcissistic way.
Right.
So,
Beautiful.
it's heavy.
Yeah. It is heavy. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight, friends. We hope you enjoyed this topic, and we hope that if any of you need to apply some radical acceptance in your life, you would find the courage to do just that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What a great write-up. We got a lot out of these questions. My gosh, we went almost 3 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes, and we still actually have people that are still in the chat. We've been in double digits most of the night, and it dipped down a little bit, but we still have like 9 people that are still here. So thank you to everyone that has been in the chat that talked to other people and answered questions, and for your comments. We appreciate that so much. And if you're listening to playback, we appreciate you as well. It's not that we don't appreciate you. Certainly, we're glad that you're listening to this broadcast. But we do invite you to come when you can and join us in the chat. And it's to join the community. And you can ask your questions and you can make your comments. And it's just, to me, it just seems like a really fun place, our chat. And we don't really have trolls. Sometimes they come in, but we have great moderators that know when to say when it comes to that. And we just are so glad for you. So thank you for being here. And hello.
I gotta
to
go
my,
to bed, John.
Yeah. Hello to my friend, one of my oldest dear friends, John. As far as I know, he still lives out there in California, so I haven't seen him in a while. But I'm delighted when he shows up, and I love his sense of humor and just appreciate him. So we're glad that you're here. I would love to see you guys again, but I don't know when we're going to be getting out to California. But maybe we can figure something out, like meet in Utah or something. I don't know. So let's meet halfway at the Denny's. That's
Nice.
great stuff. Okay. I just want to say before we say our good nights, all this topic tonight and all the topics we've covered, especially over the past couple of weeks, I know it sometimes may come across that, it seems like we have the answer to everything and it's super easy. Glenn said a couple times when he was answering a question, he says, I know it's not easy, it's hard. And he gets that. My mom used to use the term hard yards, it's interesting to me that she uses an expression like that, which is to me a sports term. The idea of, like in American football, they measure everything in yards and you're trying to push forward to get more yards. So if you say it's hard yards, it means it was difficult for you to gain the yards that you got. So relationships are tough, and especially relationships with family, when they're not healthy, are the toughest. They're in my opinion, they're hardest relationships to heal from. Harder than a marriage, harder than a friendship, harder than extended family and relationships with teachers and coaches and all people that have been part of our lives. And I think it should be. These are people that we've depended on, and they've depended on us for whatever reason. And it's just the way of things, that it's hardest when you're trying to break away from the role that you're playing in your family. So when we talk about these things, I just want to make sure everybody understands that we're not trying to imply in any way that any of this is easy. But the question you have to ask yourself, in my opinion, at the end of the day, are you worth it? Are you worth sticking up for yourself and doing what is necessary for you to do? And finding out how that looks to you and getting the resources. There are resources out there. If you're dealing with a narcissist, there are, and Marisa mentions some really good channels all of the time about this stuff. It is so pervasive in the world today that Jen and myself have started another channel that we're going to focus just on healing from these types of relationships. And this was brought on by a lot of your comments in the chat and a lot of ongoing conversations, and plus each of our own experiences up close and personal with what seems to be something that is growing and not just in my opinion. There are people talking about how narcissism in and of itself is at an all-time high. 20 years ago, people didn't know what gaslighting was. If you said gaslighting to someone, they'd say, "Oh, you're starting a fire."
Or it's that movies from the 30s.
Right, right, exactly. So I put the link in the chat to our new channel. I'll just put it up again. We don't have any content, but Jen and I just finished the introductory video for that. We will have some content on there soon. What we're asking for is anyone that has a story to tell, regardless of where you are in the process. If you want to send us a story about your struggle with narcissistic or toxic relationships, please send them to the channel email, which is outofthedark.crips@gmail.com. And if you send an email with your story, of course, I will contact you and I'll ask you if you want to remain anonymous. And we'll just talk about what the expectation is about me reading your story on the channel. Okay. So thank you for listening to that. And before we go, I'll read what Believe put in there. Philippians 4:13. We can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth us. God's grace is sufficient for us. Rest in him as you go through troubled times.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Believe. We appreciate that. Great timing for that. All right, let's say our good nights. We'll start with Jen. Jen, take a minute to say goodbye to everybody. And if you have any closing comments that you feel like anyone would like to hear, please give them.
All right. Great show, guys. Yeah, it was a little deep and heavy, but I appreciate you guys hanging in there.
Yeah.
Let's see. I hope everyone has a great week. Thank you so much. Glenn's not going to be here next Sunday, but I think we're still going to try to do the show.
Yeah.
And I just want to say to whoever might need to hear it, you are worth it.
Yeah.
You're worth healing. You're worth having self-acceptance, self-love, having a support group around you that pours into you, encourages you, loves you, accepts you just the way you are, just the way God made you. And for it to be mutual, the back and forth of encouraging one another and respecting one another and loving one another. So just want to say you're worth it. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you, Jen. Glenn, say goodnight to the peoples for us. And if you have any closing comments you'd like anyone to hear, please give them.
Yeah, I'll say goodnight all. And thank you, Jen, for putting all your stuff on the line. I think it helps when people get personal because it just makes it a lot easier to relate than hypotheticals. I can hear it from someone who's in a situation. Very beneficial to so many people. So thank you so much for doing that. And I shall see you as soon as I can. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Glenn, and safe travels next week.
Thank you.
We will miss you, but what you're doing is important, and you have a lot of people sending their thoughts and prayers out toward you, and we will. I'm sure we'll keep in touch, but we will see you the week after.
Yep, that's the intention at this point.
Okay, thank you. Next week, Marisa will be doing the write-up. And so it'll just be the three of us, but I'm sure a fun time will be had by all. So please join us next Sunday. I'll say goodnight now, and then Marisa will close us off. So again, thank you guys for being a part of the broadcast. We appreciate each and every one of you. Hello and goodbye to the Nut House who popped in. We're glad that you're here. And go over to the Nut House too. I was a guest over there for his birthday broadcast Saturday. And it was hilarious. And also Marisa and Jen were part of that as well. And it was a really good time. A really, in my opinion, a well done broadcast. So if you're not subscribed to the Nut House, our buddy, please do yourself a favor and go over there and subscribe. He did me, I just want to say while he's here, he did a really good favor for me. I mean, he's so kind to me and I love going on a show. I don't need any gift. He doesn't have to do me any favors or anything, but I did ask him if I could post my other channel in there, Dr. Sleep, that I do readings and stuff like that. And he said, "Oh yeah, sure." And then we got so into stuff that I didn't have a chance to talk about it on air, but apparently after we had left, he he must have said, I'm gonna go back and watch it, but he must have said something about it. And like 14 people subscribe to the channel. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that, because obviously the goal is to have more subscribers, so more people can be reached, and we're trying to build the channel. And it seems like sometimes you're walking through wet cement. Days that you get a lot of subscribers, and then days go by and it seems like nothing's happening. So we support each other here. Marisa does the same thing and talks about the channels, and we talk about her channel, and it's just part of it. So thank you, the Nut House, for whatever you said and did. We appreciate that so much. So go over and show him some love over there on his channel as well. And just another reminder to go visit Nez Lover's channel as well and watch the streams that she has over there. It's very entertaining. And there's some singing involved and some carrying on and art. You get to see people create something. So there you go. All right, Marisa, all my blabbering is over. So say goodnight and close us off. And if you have any closing comments, please give them.
Thank you, Jen, for a wonderful write-up, and thank you, Jason and Glenn and Jen, for a wonderful discussion. Thanks to everybody who came tonight in the chat, and thank you most certainly to everyone who watches the replay and shares it out on your social media. We really appreciate it. The links to those channels aforementioned are in the chat. So please check out Jen and me and Floyd Bingo on my channel, certainly having fun with our art. And Peanut's birthday was a riot. Me and Crips and Jen were all guests there on panel. So you want to laugh at our expense, go have a look-see.
Yep.
The concept of radical acceptance, to me, means letting go of all the negative, letting go of all the hurt, the pain of whoever and whatever did what to you. And it does certainly involve, in my opinion, forgiveness. And as a believer standpoint, I think it encompasses trust that God has better for you than what the worst of those people out there have dished out to you in the past.
Right.
The hell you survived with certain people is not what you're destined to stay in for the rest of your life. I don't believe that for a minute, and I hope none of you do either. There are always resources, people to reach out to. Don't ever feel like you're alone. Jen and I are both two living, standing, breathing testimonies that there is life after abusive, toxic, specifically narcissistic relationships and abuse.
Right.
So don't lose hope. Reach out to us if you need help, and we'll point you in the right direction. Thank you, everybody, and I will be doing the write-up next week. God willing, we're all here for that. I love you guys. God bless. And see you next week on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on True Story Live.